battle lines are drawn, and once again, somebody's saying, wait, be patient. If they knew how long it would be before all people could truly hear freedom ring, I wonder which end of that moral arc would they choose. I wonder if more would have walked in his shoes. This is what revolution looks like. You gotta get in and then stay in this fight. You've got to find a way to get in the way. Speak out every day. Freedom riders or letter writers, do what you can, just shine your light brighter. Somebody call him a saint among men, a founding father, an icon, a legend. Ordinary people with such extraordinary vision in a country so young, hard pressed on every single side, but not crushed. Saying, in God, love, and justice we trust. This is what revolution looks like. You gotta get in and then stay in this fight. You got to find a way to get in the way. Speak out every day. Freedom riders or letter writers, do what you can, just shine your light brighter. Make good trouble every chance you get. Eyes on the prize, we're not finished yet. Don't tolerate injustice, my friends. Call them out, but then call them in. If you see something that's not right, not fair, stand up and say we can do better. He said, I may not be with you when we reach the other side, so let the power of love everlasting be your guide. 'Cause this is what revolution looks like. You gotta get in, then stay in this fight. This is what revolution looks like. Get in, then stay in this fight. You've got to find a way to get in the way. Speak out every day. Freedom riders or letter writers, do what you can, just shine your light brighter. Make good trouble every chance you get. Eyes on the prize, we're not finished yet. Don't tolerate injustice, my friends. Call them out, but then call them in, call them. Find a way to get in the way. Speak out every day. Make good trouble every chance you get. Make good trouble every chance you get. Make good trouble every chance you get.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This year's theme is, and still I vote. Despite what's going on across this country with all this voter suppression legislation, Barbara, that's out there, we are still voting. We are out there pushing in numbers. I'm Attorney Darrell Jones, the board chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, and I really am proud, excited, worked up to welcome you to this year's 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Barbara, what a gorgeous day this is today.
It happened again, Daryl. For the last 3 years, we've been blessed to have this ceremony here at the historic Thurgood Marshall Trust Center. And we are just delighted to be here again because every year when people said it was going to pour down rain, God has blessed us with a beautiful day. And we have one again. But you know, Daryl, when I was listening to that video saying call them in, I thought about all the people who turned out and voted in Kansas.
All right.
Yes. And about how people have been turning out and voting. So with that said, let's get to the most important part of this program, and that's bringing up our national anthem. And everyone, get ready. Wherever you are in the nation, get ready, because we have one of the most prominent gospel artists in the United States of America and the world. Her name is Vicki Winans.
Hello. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Whoa, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free? And the home with a home of the brave, home of the brave. I am so excited to be able to be with you all today. This is oh my God, a spectacular, auspicious occasion, one that is so necessary, needed. Everybody gotta get out and vote. I don't care what you gotta do. We gotta vote November the 8th. Be there. Stand there as long as you can. Get you some snacks. Get your peanut butter sandwich. But be there and vote, because we are the land of the free. Democracy reigns. And I just want to thank you for allowing me to bring you on with the national anthem. Back to you, Barbara. God bless you all. The United States of America.
Wow. Wow, thank you so much, Vicki Winans. You stand in the best tradition of Paul Robeson, of all of those who have fought for justice using their artistic gifts. What a blessing to have you on our team for encouraging everyone to vote. Thank you, and safe travels, because everybody, she did that from an airport, so that she could make sure that she participated. That's the kind of drive we need about voting in this country, and that's why we appreciate her. But now we know, right, Daryl? About to bring it
Absolutely, Barbara. You know, one of the wonderful things about our national anthem is that everyone celebrates that national anthem. And you know, it was so moving to
Yes.
have Vicki Winans to bring her rendition of that national anthem to us. Equally important, however, is Lift Every Voice and Sing,
Oh, yes.
what we refer to as the Negro National Anthem. And I'm so excited to bring up to the stage the person that's going to be performing our Lift Every Voice and Sing, none other than Tony Spencer. He is the Commissioner of the Maryland History of African American History and Culture in the state of Maryland. But ladies and gentlemen, he is a well-respected and recording artist. Please welcome Tony Spencer for our singing of Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Yes.
Thank you, Darrell. And folks, for those of you that can, I would ask you to stand because this is the Black National Anthem. So, here's this microphone.
Hello.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us, and sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march forth till victory is won. I'm going to say that again. Let us march on till the victory has been won. Oh, has been won.
Wow.
Barbara, I think everybody's got to be fired up by now.
I mean.
My goodness, we're ready to march on to victory. We've had our marching orders from Tony Spencer. We've got our marching orders on from Vicki Winans. What more can we ask for at this point, Barbara?
Hey, we have to open this up with the spiritual dimension. You see, everyone, I lost my mom yesterday. And she was a spiritual woman, and her heart always was with the Almighty. And so I am so glad that in honor of her spirit, that we're able to have this beautiful program today, and that we're going to open it up with a gorgeous prayer. And then we're going to have a remarks by an imam, because we believe that the Almighty loves all of us. So with that said, let's introduce our next speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to bring up to the microphone my pastor.
Oh, yes.
My pastor, one of my
Come on now.
pastors. Back from John Wesley United Methodist Church, she's now the pastor at Sharp Street United Methodist Church in Sandy Spring, Maryland. She's no other than Reverend Diane Dixon Proctor. Reverend Proctor.
All right.
Thank you, Darrell. In the presence of God, we always bow. We're out in this beautiful place today, and there is nothing more that we can do than to give God thanks and praise.
Yes.
And I invite you now to pray in your tradition as I will pray in mine. I bring you greetings this morning from the Baltimore, Washington Conference of the United Methodist Church, where our residing bishop is Latrell Easterling. Let us go to the Lord in prayer. Gracious, loving, and almighty God, we bow before you because we know and understand that there is none but you that could provide for us on this beautiful day. We have come today in the words of John Lewis that says, make good trouble on this 57th anniversary. And I know, Lord, that still we understand that we can vote. And so today, as we come and we listen to the various speakers from all nationalities, for all races, creeds, and colors, we understand that we are in a particular time where hatred is still arising. But still, Lord, there are those who love each other. And of course, Lord, we love you more. And so, God, we look to stamp out racism. We look out to stamp out those things that are impeding our progress. We look to stamp out those things that are trying to stop democracy from going on. We look, dear God, to you for help. God, come into this place. Fill us with your love. Touch us with your spirit. Help each speaker to understand and know and speak out of the contents, not just of their character, but of their heart and out of their tradition and love for you. And so, God, as we gather today in Washington, D.C., on this 57th anniversary, we give thanks to you. And we know, God, that as long as we have breath, we will continue to vote and get everybody on board, Lord. Let not our young people tarry, but let them understand that they are our future and that they must get out and vote. Let our older people know that even if they feel a little ache or pain and think they can't go, get some help and get out to vote. Let us all remember that the vote does count, and our ancestors have fought so hard down through the ages to give us the right to vote, and so we don't have the right not to vote. And so, God, we're here today to make some good trouble. And so, God, won't you bless this good trouble and bless all that are here, all that will speak, and all that are yet to come. And we ask this and all things because we know that you are the author and the finisher of our faith. Amen, amen, amen.
Thank you, Reverend Proctor. You know, as we celebrate this 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, one of the things that Reverend Proctor lifted up was that we're pushing toward a multiracial, inclusive democracy. We're not completely there yet, but this is the push that we have and the work that we have in front of us to achieve.
Yes.
And this year, in celebrating our 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, the Transformative Justice Coalition is spreading its wings. We want to be certain that every faith knows that they're included when we talk about pushing forward and voting rights throughout the United States. I'm so pleased that not only has the Baltimore, Washington United Methodist Conference joined us as a co-sponsor for this year's event, but we've also been co-sponsored this year by the Islamic Society of North America. And Barbara, our next speaker is Imam Safed Katovic.
Yes.
And he's brought a video.
A beautiful video.
Oh my goodness! Does it express, Barbara, the?
Woo!
Oh yes.
Get ready, everybody, because you know when we talk about protecting the vote, folks forget that voter suppressors aren't just targeting our African American voters, not just targeting our Asian American voters, not just targeting our Latino voters, but they're also targeting our Arabic Muslim voters also. So it is a pleasure and an honor to hear this beautiful word of faith to get us started today.
Assalamu alaikum. Greetings of peace. Your brother in faith and humanity, Imam Safed Abed Katovic. Muslim chaplain at Drew University in Madison, New Jersey, and head of the Islamic Society of North America, ISNA's Office for Interfaith, Community Alliances, and Government Relations in DC. Allow me to begin by thanking and praising God with the Arabic words, Alhamdulillah, all praise and glory be to God, by thanking our dear sisters and brothers at the Transformative Justice and Rainbow Push Coalition and their partners who have worked so hard to organize this program and bring us all together today for a sacred purpose, commemoration and reflection on this, the 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. There is a saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which goes, Men la yashkurun nas la yashkurullah. Whosoever is not grateful and genuinely appreciative of the good that people have done, such a one is ungrateful to the Lord our God. And so we thank you, you who have come out today, who joined together with us. And we thank the organizers for making the call that has brought us all together on this blessed occasion. We have responded, and we are here and with you, virtually or in person. Thank you to all those who have come before us in the struggle for freedom and for all since the founding of this nation. And in particular, thank you to our predecessors in the civil rights movement who prayed and agitated and then prayed again with their feet by marching onward and fought against great odds the good fight in the face of rabid racial oppression as they sought to overcome the injustices and evils up until their time. We thank, recognize, and honor all those who have sacrificed so much for so long, even unto death, so that here in America, our common home, all of Beni Adam, the sons and daughters of Adam and Eve, who in the Quranic teaching have been infused with the divine spirit and thereby ennobled with the dignity of the human person, who according to the biblical scripture are made in the image of God and called the children of God, so that all of us, irrespective of our color or creed, our socioeconomic status, or our station in life, or the circumstances we may find ourselves in, have the right to speak politically. For dear sisters and brothers, if we do not speak politically in this world we live in, we do not speak at all. The right to vote is the basis and the heart of political speech. Our dear brother, the late Congressman John Lewis, civil rights veteran and leader, observed, quote, "The vote is precious. It is almost sacred. It is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have in our democracy," unquote. So true. The vote is the right, nay, the obligation to be equally heard and listened to be an active and engaged part of the consultative process through which decisions that impact our lives and the lives of our children and our children's children are made. In the Quran, Allah, God speaks to this basic human right of decision through mutual consultation in Surah Ash-Shura, the chapter entitled The Consultation, chapter 2, verse 38, when God says, وَأَمَرُهُمْ شُورَ بَيْنَهُمْ, and those who have responded to their Lord and established prayer, and whose affairs are determined and decided upon by mutual consultation among themselves. In this electoral democracy, and this is the very definition of an electoral democracy, we all are supposed to have the right equally through unhampered and unimpeded access to the ballot box to choose our leaders and representatives so that they may do the right thing. They may do that which is just and fair, and to work for our common good. And woe to them, for if they fall short or fail in that undertaking, and betray the trust we have given them as our elected public servants, we will hold them to account. And if need be, and the truth be told for quite a few, it need be, we replace them with those who are better in honoring the trust and protecting and safeguarding our interests, and those of our families, our communities, our states, and our nation. In the Quran, in Surah An-Nisa, the chapter entitled Woman, chapter 4, verse 58, God commands all of us, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تُؤَدُّوا الْأَمَانَاتِ إِلَى أَهْلِهَا وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ أَن تَحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ. Indeed, God commands you to return the trusts to their rightful owners. The rightful owners are those who are trustworthy and will honor their responsibilities in conducting the affairs of the people which they have been entrusted with. And the verse continues, and when you judge between people, judge with equity and fairness. What a noble commandment from God to you. Surely and verily, God is all hearing, all seeing. Dear sisters and brothers, let us bow our heads and open our hearts and our hands in prayer. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. O Allah, our Lord, thanks and gratitude be to you as much as your magnificence and the great authority ought to deserve. Ya Rabbana, dear Lord, we ask this day, which has been made sacred and sanctified by the presence of your loving servants of all faiths, ages, genders, colors, and hues, speaking various languages, who have come together in your holy name to pray, to call to mind, and to recommit to act to bring about and make real the beloved and inclusive community, where all have the right to be heard and listened to, and to be able to vote our conscience in this electoral democracy of America, our common home, without the fear of being purged from the ranks of voter rolls, or being intimidated, suppressed, or denied our God-given right to speak politically, to elect and to call to account our representatives who we have entrusted under your watchful eyes to do that which is right, that which is just, that which is pleasing to you, O Lord. Ya Rabbana, dear Lord, we ask your forgiveness, for you are Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the merciful, the compassionate, Al-Ghafur Ar-Rahim, our merciful benefactor and redeemer who loves to forgive. Forgive us, Lord, for many of us have taken the right to vote for granted. And we now find ourselves, dear Lord, in the midst of a crisis with a wave of voting restrictions and redistricting abuses, both of which often target communities of color across this land. Our sisters and brothers whose right to vote is being placed in jeopardy or outright denied by wrongdoing of some of our ill-informed politicians, supported by ill-conceived and wrong-headed legal actions and decisions by some within our courts. All of which, dear Lord, are playing to the worst in our natures in pursuit of short-term partisan gains. Help us, dear Lord. Help us, dear Lord. Help us, dear Lord, with courageous leaders who will serve all Americans and act to protect fair laws equally for all of us, including the sacred right to vote. Ya Rabbana, أنت قوي ونحن ضعفاء إليك. Dear Lord, you are all powerful and we are weak. انصرنا انصرنا انصرنا. Answer our prayers today. Strengthen and support us and grant us victory in the work which lies ahead as we commit together to resist and to stop the rollback of voters' rights and to put in place a series of full strength voting rights legislation to prevent this oppression from spreading. And help us, dear Lord, to root it out quickly where it does occur. We remember, dear Lord, that not too long ago, our brother Frederick Douglass reminded us then. And dear Lord, it is so true now. Power concedes nothing without demand. It never did, it never will. So, dear Lord of glory and might, O powerful one, help us to make that demand and thereby make society better for everyone. Our faith requires us to count, to vote, and to continue to advocate towards civil justice and human rights. And let the believing folks say, Amen. Ameen. Wassalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings to you all.
Iman Kadovic, thank you so much for those words. You know, we often say, Barbara, that we're pushing toward this multiracial, multi-inclusive, super inclusive democratic society. And, you know, how can we not have and honor a person such as the Imam unless we give him the platform and we understand that we're standing together in this fight, that as one rises, we all rise, that we are all in the same boat, in the same ocean, and we've got to rise and be together with regards to what we're doing on voting rights and social issues.
Absolutely. And last year we had a powerful Jewish rabbi who brought us great remarks. So we are just so happy to be able to demonstrate the inclusiveness of the democracy that we want. So with that said, it is our pleasure now to bring up one of the nation's most powerful leaders. He is the chair of the board of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust. He is, without question, one of the most powerful civil rights voices because he is also the CEO of the National Newspapers Publishers Association, and he is the host of the Chavis Chronicles. We're talking about Benjamin
Chavis. Thank you very much.
Let the world say amen. 57 years ago, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was finally made law in the United States of America. I want to thank Attorney Barbara Anwan. I want to thank Attorney Darrell Jones, the Transformative Justice Coalition. Let's give them a hand for putting this program together. The National Newspaper Publishers Association, we're very pleased to be in partnership with the Transformative Justice Coalition, with the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust. And let me just say, for those who are here in Washington, D.C. on this morning, I know that there are millions and thousands of people watching by social media across the United States and yet also throughout the world of this special program. But I want you to know that here at the Thurgood Marshall Center on 12th Street, we're in the heart of what was known as the Shaw District, which was a black-owned community here in Washington, D.C. This building was a former YMCA. It is now the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust. Years ago, when Thurgood Marshall did his research for the Brown decision, he stayed in this building.
Wow.
And the reason why he stayed in this building because back in the 40s and the early 50s, D.C. was still segregated. Even though it was a predominantly black city, black people could not stay in the hotels in Washington, D.C. So Thurgood Marshall stayed here. James Baldwin stayed here. Some of our leading poets, Langston Hughes, stayed here. And everybody who was freedom fighters. So we come from a long tradition today as we recognize and acknowledge the 57th year since the Voting Rights Act has passed. One other thing that's got to say, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 did not fall out of the sky. It just didn't happen. Somebody went to jail. Somebody died. Somebody bled. Somebody experienced hardship on that Edmunds Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, beaten to death. John Lewis was one of the ones that was beaten to death. Not beaten to death, but beaten down. Hosea Williams was one of the ones that was beaten down on that day. And so on behalf of my former colleagues at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Hosea Williams, the Honorable Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Edwin Afton at the time to call all their names. There's a long tradition of fighting for freedom. So we fought for voting rights, and by 1965, we finally got it. But one of the things, Barbara and Darrell, we've learned some hard lessons.
Yes.
That when you fight and win a victory, you got to keep fighting to hold on to that victory.
That's right.
Because there have been forces at work over the last 57 years to try to take away our voting rights, to try to erode our voting rights. Even the Supreme Court of the United States voted to take out some of the provisions that were the most forceful provisions of the Voting Rights Act.
Yes.
So we come today in 2022, yes, to acknowledge that this is the 57th year of the Voting Rights Act being passed, but we come today to reaffirm that we are still fighting for voting rights.
Right.
We're still going to struggle for voting rights.
Yes.
And we aren't going to let anybody get in our way. The far right wing, they got an agenda. They not only want to suppress our vote, they don't want us to vote. But we got news for them. We're going to have the largest voter turnout in American history in 2022. The largest turnout. And that's why the NNPA, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Karen Carter Richards, our chair, we represent 235 African-American-owned newspapers, including the Washington Informer, including the Baltimore Afro. I can just go down the whole list. I know our brothers and sisters in Texas are listening, and Dallas Examiner in Dallas, Houston Forward Times in Houston. We got people, and you told me you're heading to Kentucky.
Yeah.
I talked to the Kentucky Defender, the Louisville Defender. They're going to be on board. We're going to be in Milwaukee next week.
Yes.
The Milwaukee Journal, all of our newspapers across the country. I was just down in Mississippi with the Mississippi Link and the Jackson Advocate across the country. And I know we're going to be marching in Georgia.
Yes.
All of our HBCU students are marching in Georgia to make sure we have a large voter turnout. So here in Washington, D.C., wherever you are listening across this country, we got work to do. We got a lot of struggle to do. There's some myths out there. This is my ending point, Barbara and Darrell.
Yes.
I've been monitoring social media. I've been monitoring some of the misinformation that's out there trying to convince our young people not to vote, trying to tell our young people that there's no sense, no consequence in not voting. We got to make sure that our Generation Z and our millennials, as Malcolm would say, don't go for the okie-doke. Don't go for the misinformation. Our history shows that if we continue to fight for freedom, we win for freedom. If we continue to fight for voting rights, we win for voting rights. I'm so thankful we had our religious leaders from the church, from the mosque, and from the synagogue here to start off on prayer. Because we would not be where we are today without God Almighty.
That's right.
No matter what your religion.
That's right.
And so if God is on our side, don't worry about who's against us. We just got to keep organizing, keep moving. I've grown up in the civil rights movement. And one of the things I've learned, I'll end on this point, that we struggle, we sacrifice, not just for ourselves as individuals.
Yes.
We struggle, we sacrifice, we go to the front line of the struggle, and sometimes you may be in the middle, you may be at the end of the struggle. But I want to tell you, brothers and sisters, the best feeling in the world is to go to sleep at night and wake up in the morning knowing you've done something for your freedom.
Oh, yes.
Knowing you've done something to ensure your voting rights.
Yes.
So, a luta continua, the struggle continues. I've got our sleeves rolled up. We're going to be marching. We're going to get on buses. We're going to have voter kegs. We're going to have civil disobedience. We're going to do everything that we can to ensure that 10 million more black voters go to the polls and that millions more have the largest voter turnout in American history. God bless this coalition. God bless our movement. God bless the voting rights for all of us. God bless you. Thank you.
Great.
Reverend, wow. Dr. Chavis, thank you, sir, for all your leadership. Thank you for everything you do. And it is our pleasure now to bring up an international icon, an international icon. We're talking about the man who has done the impossible. When they said that you couldn't free people who were being held as political prisoners, what did he do? He went to those countries and got them. When they said that the vision and the dream and the power of Dr. Martin Luther King was over, he said, "Excuse me, I am somebody." When they said that we could not run for office, he boldly ran for president, paving the way for Obama, for President Obama. You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one, the only Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson.
I can now. Barbara, one thing was huge introduction. Let me express my thanks to you and Ben and the whole family there. Barbara, glad to be with you guys today. It's such a delight to the family because all the work Dr. King did during that season was the right to vote, to protect the right to vote. Now, with voting rights, I'm protected. It will be more difficult to vote. That's why we should have a Supreme Court term limits. We should have all the parties. All right, have the right to vote. The Western world, Eastern too. All the federal government. It's about Venezuela, Cuba. Paris, to be a sense about other things. We have to be very careful about
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Jackson is at an airport, so they're having some difficulty with the lines and communication. But I can certainly share with you that Reverend Jackson remains on the forefront of the voting rights movement. We were just in, where were we, Barbara? Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Having a, what was it called?
Oh my goodness, it was a
Pig picking,
fish frying,
chicken licking,
blues playing.
hey, cookout, voter pick cookout. And they came out by the hundreds to find out about their voting rights. And people were happy to be there. And Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr., drove all the way from Chicago to Wisconsin to meet the voters, to hug them, and in fact, you know what he did, folks? Instead of having an altar call, he had a voter registration call. And he called people up to the front of the stage who were not registered, and people came up. So it just shows you that there is power in our organizing. That's why we're so proud to be able to be part of the partnership with the National Newspaper Publishers Association.
And you know, Barbara, part of the message that Reverend Jackson was bringing in Wisconsin to Milwaukee wasn't simply a message of what he has done.
Oh, no.
Wasn't a message of what he has accomplished. It was a message of saying we need to celebrate the right to vote. We need to be certain that we get out there and push voters, get people out to vote. And ladies and gentlemen, the last point before we move on to our next point, one of the things that we're now waiting and hoping that Reverend Jackson will get involved with is in Russia with the imprisonment of Brittany Griner.
Yes.
Because we know that when Reverend Jackson gets involved, as Barbara was saying, when Reverend Jackson gets involved, things happen.
Yes.
Things move.
Yes.
So the wrongful imprisonment of Brittany Griner, that's now been sentenced to 9 years in a prison in Russia, is one of the issues we're hoping that Reverend Jackson will have the opportunity to get involved with. But it goes back, Barbara, to the history of voting.
Yes.
What Dr. Chavis spoke of, the history of voting. He was doing a call of those historians that have stood in the pathway of demanding voter registration, voting rights for everyone. And I know that you have this PowerPoint presentation that we're going to present that's going to talk about the Freedom Summer and the fight that went on and bring it on up current. Barbara, are we ready for this PowerPoint presentation? Please.
Are we ready?
Let's roll it.
Let us vote. All right, everybody. First of all, when people want to know why are we celebrating the 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. We're honoring that act because it paved the way for so many to vote. So we will continue every year to honor the signing of the Voting Rights Act on August 6th, back in 1965. But how did we get there? Next slide. All right, it was the Freedom Summer. Young people who put their lives on the line. People like the amazing, incredible John Lewis. Yes, because he made his debut as an organizer, being a freedom rider. And like he said, he had been beaten so much, he had no idea that you could have a peaceful march. Sadly, in 1964, we saw Andrew Goodman, James Chaney, and Mickey Swerner murdered, their bodies dumped in an earthen dam. And months before they were found, and Darrow, remember part of that story is that as they were looking for their bodies, what happened?
Oh yes, Barbara, they were finding all kinds of bodies throughout Mississippi, bodies that they didn't even know who they were, didn't know they were missing. So as they were going through that process of looking for Goodman, Chaney, and Schwerner, they were uncovering many other bodies, but much of that went unreported, Barbara.
Yes, and that's just a reminder to all of us that so many unnamed, unknown people have given everything for our right to vote. And they gave it all, and so many others like Medgar Evers and so many others. So we are grateful, absolutely grateful to everyone for being here today and for watching this broadcast. And make sure that you tell others to watch this broadcast even after we finish, because this is the education people need. Malcolm X delivered his famous speech called The Ballot or the Bullet in on April 3rd of 1964, and he was reminding people we either going to have a peaceful democracy that's inclusive of everybody, or we're going to have a street fight revolution. So his take led to so many people saying we better pass a Voting Rights Act. Next was Bloody Sunday. You see, Dr. King went to President Lyndon Baines Johnson and said, we need a Voting Rights Act. What did he tell him? What did he tell him, Darrell? What did he tell him? What did President Johnson say to Dr. King?
Make me do it.
Make me do it. So Dr. King, with SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, with Diane Nash, with the mighty Amelia Robinson Boynton, with her and so many others, they started organizing with C.T. Vivian and others, trying to get people registered to vote, and those mean, ugly, repressive sheriffs and other law enforcement officials opposed them. So when they said we're going to have a little march, 600 of us are going to march from Selma to Montgomery in March 7th of 1965, they were brutally beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And that galvanized the nation when they saw how viciously people were opposing the right of so many to vote. And as a consequence, after Bloody Sunday, President Johnson pledged that he had to protect the right of, they said Negroes, but African Americans to vote. Next slide. And on August the 6th, that's the wrong date, 1965, President Lyndon Johnson signed the act into law. And for that reason, we gather every year to celebrate the Voting Rights Act. Next slide. Outside the South in 1964, folks, 72% of all blacks were registered. In the southern states, combined, only 44% were registered and able to turn out. In the 1990s, the southern states' African-American turnout was equal to turnout outside the South. Next slide. However, when President Obama was elected in 2008, folks said, that's too much. That's too much democracy. What you mean, a black president? Too much democracy. And folks getting confused. They always tell me, Barbara, what are you talking about? Because he was elected. And I said, hey, have you ever looked at the stats of how he was elected? Did you realize that in some southern states, President Obama only received 10% of the white vote? So the opposition to his presidency was not only in the South, it was nationwide. And we saw people in the streets dressed up like the Joker and Sambo images opposing his presidency during the entire presidency. And in 2011, I created what became known as the map of shame to show that the states were now passing voter suppression laws. Next slide. Shelby versus Holder, Darrell, as lawyers, that's a low point for all of us, because that's when the Supreme Court refused to do its job.
Absolutely, Barbara. You know, the Shelby versus Holder decision ushered in many of the restrictive legislations that we see in place today, the license requirements, all these different requirements that you now see states taking advantage of and trying to stop black, brown, as well as our minority brothers and sisters from voting and young voters from voting. All of that stems from that Shelby versus Holder decision. We lay, and I always say, Barbara, that we lay all of the suppressive legislation that's happening across this country today at the doorstep of the Supreme Court, because it was Shelby versus Holder that ushered in all of that legislation that is resulting in what we're fighting for today, to preserve that right to be able to cast a meaningful ballot throughout our country.
Absolutely. And in the wake of Shelby, 11 of the states that used to be covered by Section 5, those were states with a history of discrimination in voting. 11 of them, more than 73%, introduced these ugly voter suppression laws. Texas, Mississippi, and Alabama immediately announced plans the day of the decision to implement voter suppression laws. But it continues to this day. The court continues to fail to protect our rights. Shelby versus Holder. And then we saw Bronovich versus DNC just last year, where they not only went after Section 5, but they now in Bronovich attacked Section 2, the liability part of the Voting Rights Act. And look at 2021, after the largest voter turnout, the second largest in history, they came up with 20. In 2021, they passed over 100 voter suppression laws, 35 major bills in 19 states. So that tells us everything. Moving on. But there were people who have fought. This is Mr. Milligan. He sued Alabama for their gerrymandered voting districts. So next term, the Supreme Court is going to hear a major challenge to the Voting Rights Act. Next slide. Next slide. They're going to hear a challenge in the Milligan versus Merrill case to the gerrymandered districts, but they're also going to hear North Carolina's. Next slide. The Harper case in North Carolina, where the state Supreme Court told the legislature, you cannot gerrymander. You can't come up with a made-up map that takes away power, because under that map, Republicans, and I'm just saying what the map did, Republicans would have won 10 of the seats, and Democrats only had an opportunity to win 4. Next map. So, everybody, this is what? Ridiculous. Say it again. This is ridiculous. And there are now 72 forms of voter suppression. I won't go through them. Telling people that you can't give folks waiting in line, long lines, food and water, using all kinds of deceptive practices. And you know that Steve Bannon, Cleta Mitchell, and others have said that they're going to have poll disruptors at what? Black polling places, Latino polling places. What they didn't say was white polling places. So, that's why we're here today, to remind everyone that voting is the essence of our democracy.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And as you indicated, in Georgia and Florida and some other places, they've decided that it is illegal after shuttering many of the polling places and intentionally creating long lines to provide those people waiting in line water. That's illegal in Georgia, Florida. Illegal to give them food. But folks, it's hot here today, so we want to be certain y'all have water. We got water over here. We don't want anybody to pass out here. But
and the food.
And we got food. We've certainly go to the food trucks. So both food and water are here, and you don't have to wait to vote here either. You know, it's our pleasure to not only talk about the Voting Rights Act and talk about the voting legislation that in the history of the restrictive access to voting that Black, brown, and young voters have had throughout our country. But you know, when we talk about those heroes and those sheroes that have fought the fight, Barbara,
yes.
You know, they're members of Congress
yes.
that have stood in that battle, that have stood in that gap to be certain that the fight continued,
oh, yes.
and that they were waging the war to protect voting rights for everybody. So it's our pleasure to bring up now one of those sheroes,
oh, yes.
one of those warriors, in the person of Congresswoman Maxine Waters.
Good afternoon. I am so pleased to join you and organizations like Rainbow Push, Black Voters Matter, the National Organization for Women, League of Women Voters, Poor People's Campaign, and the National Newspaper Publishers Association. I'm so happy to be joining all of you for this celebration of the 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. As you all know, this landmark law is considered to be the most effective piece of federal civil rights legislation ever enacted in our country. After many years of hard work, public protests, contentious debate, partisan maneuvering, and marching, it was signed into law on August 6, 1965, by President Lyndon Johnson in a ceremony which included, of course, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, John Lewis, and other civil rights icons. It resulted in a major increase in national voter participation, especially by African Americans. For 5 decades, it protected everyone's basic right to be a part of our democracy. You probably also know the Voting Rights Act has been under attack recently by the Supreme Court, Donald Trump, and Republican leadership all over the country. We never thought that we would have to work so hard 50 something years later to keep the Voting Rights Act from being overturned or completely gutted. We're finding that the struggle certainly continues in different shapes and different forms. In 2021 alone, 34 laws with anti-voter measures were enacted in 19 states. Some states now are enacting blatant election interference measures, which could lead to tampering or even rejection of election results entirely. Just think about it, and you'll know whose voices they don't want to be heard. These laws restrict voter registration, require various forms of identification, limit early and mail-in voting, increase barriers for voters with disabilities, ensure long lines at polling places, and allow local partisan officials to interfere with election results, all designed to guarantee just what happened in 2020, when we had the largest voter turnout in recent history. Doesn't happen again. Trump and his supporters are undermining our entire electoral system because they want to make sure that they win in 2022 and 2024, not fairly, but by manipulating the process. The racism involved is abundantly obvious, like the way they literally intimidated and confused people recently in Georgia during their primaries, the fear and bullying they are directing at local election workers, and the way they've been taking over many of our election offices through appointments, etc. We find ourselves at a time where we're fighting like our heroes and sheroes fought for our voting rights, our right to determine our own destinies. It is ridiculous that H.R. 4, the John Lewis Recent Voting Acts Enhancement Law, passed the House and is still languishing in the Senate because they don't want to make it obvious who opposes our vote and our right to vote. There are important elections coming up as soon as this fall. We stand to lose our influence and our power if we don't hold on to the House of Representatives and at least one more vote, majority of the United States Senate. We will find ourselves unable to advance any important legislation and totally at the whim of people who do not have certainly our best interests at heart. That's why I applaud and thank people like Barbara Arwine, Darrell Jones, the Transformative Justice Coalition, and all other organizations bringing attention to the anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. Your hard work, the efforts of the Congressional Black Caucus, and the events like today will probably wake everyone up to see what's being done all around us and to make sure we don't allow this country to go backwards. As I frequently say, if our voices and votes don't matter, they wouldn't be working so hard to make sure we don't vote. So I want to thank you all for everything that you do. And let's just work as hard as we have to ensure that our civil rights icons. Our forefathers and mothers didn't work in vain. Thank you very much.
All right. Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Let me tell you, folks. Barbara, let me let you explain to them what was going on with Congresswoman Maxine Waters there.
You know, sometimes things get lost. And when she heard that she was being asked to do this video, she said, yes, I gotta do this video. And you can hear her, she's outside, you guys, in a park where she had just spoken, during cutting that video to make sure that you, the national audience, and you here in Washington, D.C., got to hear her and know how important voting is. So that was the, Los Angeles International Airport that you heard in the background. She is amazing. That's why we love her. That's why people call her what? Auntie Maxine.
You know, Barbara, I tell you, it's hot out here, and everyone sees me with my towel, wiping my forehead, trying to keep. It pales in comparison to the heat we're going to bring across this country during the general elections, during the primary elections. This ain't nothing compared to what NNPA, TJC, and all of our partners are going to be doing. Black Voters Matter. All our partners are going to be out there pushing. But, speaking of our partners, Barbara, I'm so excited that we have the National Urban League that has joined us as one of those partners. And I know you wanted to speak with regards to the president and CEO of the National Urban League.
You know, the first time I met Mark Morial was in litigation. He was suing the state of Louisiana for voter suppression, for Voting Rights Act violations in the election of judges. And that's how I met him as a lawyer plaintiff in this case. And he has been on the front lines fighting for voting rights ceaselessly. And as the CEO and president of the National Urban League, he commands all of his units around the country to get involved in voting. And that's why we were proud that when we were in Milwaukee, who was there? The Milwaukee Urban League. When we're going to be in Philly, who's going to be there? The Philadelphia Urban League. So wherever we go, we're involving the NAACP, the Urban League chapters in our work. So we want you to know that. So it's our pleasure now to move forward. And with this powerful video from the president and CEO of the National Urban League, Mark Morial.
I'm Mark Morial, President and Chief Executive Officer of the National Urban League. And I'm always proud, as we are at the National Urban League, to partner with the Transformative Justice Coalition and Barbara Arnwine, and the partnership and the family and the sense that together we've got to fight for the right to vote. I'm not going to take too much of your time today, except to say, yes, there's an effort to suppress, to thwart, to dilute our vote. But as our ancestors and our history teaches us, we cannot be thwarted, we cannot be frustrated, we cannot be deterred, because thwarting, frustration, and being deterred are not a viable strategy. Only determination and perseverance will help us ensure a lot's on the line. Violent insurrectionists sought to bring this nation to its knees on January 6th. And those insurrectionists, no matter what suit they wear, no matter what seat they sit in, no matter what title appears before their name, have to be held accountable in the courts of law. But what it should do is send us a signal that there are some in this country who do not believe in representative democracy. There's some in this country who do not believe in the universality of the right to vote. There's some in this country that will use every means to wrest power from a grand coalition of people who are black and brown and white. They're indigenous, they're Asian American. Our coalition is about today and tomorrow. It's about fighting for the right for people to exercise their choice at the ballot box, but to otherwise have a say in what happens at school boards and city councils and county commissions and state legislatures, and yes, in the Congress, and yes, at the White House, and yes, in the State House, and yes, at City Hall. So today we are partnering as we launch our own Reclaim Your Vote campaign to touch 18 communities in 6 states, to both educate and mobilize, to turn out and to protect the vote. And we're all unified in this effort. So, Barbara, thank you for your great leadership, for continuing to be on the front lines in this fight for democracy and voting rights. We at the National Urban League stand with you. We stand together, and we'll make a difference together. Keep the faith, and God bless.
Thank you, Mark.
You know, Barbara, keeping the faith is what it's all about in this fight for voting rights throughout our country. And, you know, sometimes it seems almost impossible to keep dreaming and to keep pushing forward on that dream of voting rights in this multiracial, inclusive democracy. But we're so pleased to be able to bring forward this fight.
Yes, and we always have fought with song. People don't know that Nat Turner wrote some of the most powerful gospel lyrics that we sing today. We don't know that Harriet Tubman would sing what? Go Down Moses. That she would sing all kinds of songs to awaken people to fight for justice. Well, we're happy that we have a songstress with us today.
Oh, absolutely, Barbara. You know, was it Nelson Mandela that said, impossible is impossible until someone else does it?
Until it's done.
Until it's done. Then once it's done, it's what? It's possible.
All right.
Oh, wow, wow, wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to welcome Tiara Rolls to bring us a song, a selection. Tiara.
Yes.
To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm as I lay to my rest, and the world will be better for this, that one man scorned and covered with scars still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach, to reach, to reach
Wow. Sometimes that's all you can say is, wow. Thank you so much for that beautiful song, Daryl.
But you know, Barbara, when we talk about impossible dreams,
Whoa,
when we talk about
Get ready.
impossible scenarios,
whoa, get ready.
when we talk about difficulties that face you, you know,
Well-
there are two things that you can do in a difficult situation. You can stand up and face it and deal with it, or you can run.
Right.
And the next group that we're going to hear from,
Get ready.
let me tell you, if you haven't been to Brunswick, Georgia,
Well,
I don't know how to describe it to you.
well,
It's as rural gets.
right.
It's a place in Georgia that's poor. And it's a place in Georgia where African Americans are trying to be forced into subjugation, being forced to not excel. Poverty rules in Brunswick, Georgia.
Yes.
And it was in Brunswick, Georgia that Ahmaud Arbery was out for a run.
Well,
And as he was out,
25 years old.
25 years old, out for a run. And as he was out for his daily run, this is a route that he regularly ran, he made the decision to run his regular route,
Yes.
which took him through a predominantly white community,
Segregated.
community. And 3 of the members of that community made the decision that a young 25-year-old black guy running through their community was up to no good and decided to trap him.
And before that, they complained because he would stop for water at a house under construction. And they thought he had to be a thief. But the owner of the house told him, no, nothing's missing. The police told him nothing's missing. So if you're worried about this young man, just call us. But that wasn't good enough, because if you heard the trial, you know they had been talking about wanting to kill an N-word. That they had been begging for the opportunity to kill a black person. And they had been talking about this before they set their eyes on Ahmaud.
The Transformative Justice Coalition was blessed to be able to go down to Brunswick, Georgia, and to meet with the family of Ahmaud Arbery, to work with the family of Ahmaud Arbery, and in the state trial, to be down there every day for, what, Barbara, 3 months?
Oh my God, yes.
For 3 months, being certain that the community would come together.
Hey, Daryl, people think we live in Georgia.
To have people from the community to come together and to stand up with the Arbery family for
Yes.
this wrong that had occurred. Well, on this Monday, the federal trial has occurred, and they've been convicted in the state trial. They've been given life sentences in the state trial, but it's belts and suspenders because we had a federal lawsuit that went on. And the federal verdict was guilty for all 3 of them, and now they're facing their sentencing on Monday. But this is a voting rights story. And folks always ask the question, why do y'all say the Arbery story is a voting rights story? This is the reason it's a voting rights story. The prosecutor in Glenn County, where Brunswick is located, was up for re-election the year that Ahmaud Arbery was killed. That prosecutor received a phone call from one of Ahmaud's killers on the scene as the father of one of the shooters stood on the scene with Ahmaud's blood on his hands. He receives a call from the prosecutor, calls the prosecutor, and says something is amiss. We have a death that's on our hands. We need some help. We need some advice.
No, he said, help me, because we just killed a man. That's what he said. He said, help me, we just killed a man. And what did the prosecutor do? What should she have done, folks?
What she did was that she told him to go home, wash your hands. She told the police, stand back, don't make an arrest. They took the son down for questioning and sent him home. The other 2 gentlemen went home. One continued working on his garage. The father washed his hands and continued with his daily life. And all of this would have never resulted in a prosecution of which you've heard us speak, but for the efforts of Ahmaud Arbery's family.
Yes.
It was the family that said, no, this ain't right. The prosecutor lied to them, told them that she had it all under control. Don't worry about a thing. We're going to take care of this. She was burying the tape that everyone has seen of Ahmaud being killed. The family said, no, we're not having it this way. It was beyond the time, Barbara, for anyone to file to run against that prosecutor. But the Arbery family, along with their allies, went and gathered the signatures on a petition to get another name on the ballot to run against Jackie Johnson, who was the prosecutor who was so messed up in all these actions. And they were able to get that name on the ballot, but they didn't stop there.
They didn't.
I told you it's a voting rights story. They didn't stop there. Because once they got the name on the ballot, they worked in the election to fight to defeat Jackie Johnson from the state's attorney's office there in Glynn County. And for the first time in Glynn County's history, an incumbent prosecutor lost her seat. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to welcome.
It's our honor to welcome from the father's side, Marcus Arbery and the aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, the family of Ahmaud Arbery.
Yes, how y'all doing today? You hear us?
We hear you, Marcus. We hear you. Marcus, keep talking, please.
Okay, I'm still here, Miss Barbara. I ain't gonna get y'all. We getting this thing together, and we fight for full justice for Ahmaud Arbery. 100%. And Monday morning, we will be in the last time for court with the Michaels. Even though they don't want to go, they want remorse now, but we don't have any remorse for them. Because they did not have none for Ahmaud. So I don't see why they trying to sit back and talk about their life and then what about his life? How you think he felt when he had to run for those, 5-6 minutes of his life? So do they ever sit back and think about his life? You running him with shotguns and all that stuff, what you think about his life? So, hey, it's time to face the python. That's why when it comes down to where you see people doing wrong in these offices, not protecting our people and not protecting our rights, that's why black people, y'all better get out and vote and get the right people in there who is going to set and see that all of us is treated equally. So when you got the chance, get out and vote. Please vote, because I tell you one thing we learned this time. Every year it's time to vote. We are voting to get the right people in these offices.
We are so grateful. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Diane. Thank you. Thank you for all your leadership. And guess where we'll be on Sunday? Tomorrow we will arrive in Brunswick. We will be there, TJC, and all justice fighting people. And on Monday night, we'll have another national broadcast on Facebook Live, on Instagram, on YouTube, as we are today, so that people can know what happened and our take on what happened. So we want to thank you, Marcus Arbery, for showing the world family voting power. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you to the Arbery family. Look forward to seeing you on Monday.
Oh, yes.
And Tuesday. And Tuesday.
Yes, and Tuesday, everybody get ready. Tuesday at 11 o'clock, there will be a street naming ceremony in Brunswick. They're going to name a street for Ahmaud Arbery.
Ladies and gentlemen, Much thanks to the Arbery family for appearing and being with us and for all that they've done in the fight for voting rights in the state of Georgia. And let me just say one last thing before I bring up our next act. When we went through the federal trial for the wrongful killing of Ahmaud Arbery, there was a jury foreman that was there. And many people don't know this. But the foreman of that jury was an African-American man. And when he announced the decision of the jury, tears were flowing from his eyes as he was being comforted by many of the whites that were on the jury with him to be able to deliver the verdict. And for the first time in Georgia's history, the federal trial resulting in this wrongful death was a guilty verdict. That's the first time in Georgia for that to have occurred. And I just wonder, Barbara, we always say we try to go out and try to help folks.
Yes.
We went down to try to help the Arbery's, and we were successful. We've gone down to try to help people all over this country.
Yes.
And, I guess if we can help somebody, then we've done our part.
That's right.
That's what it's all about, is trying to help somebody. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome back Tiara Rolls. Tiara.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn through the storm, through the night. Lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home when my way grows drear. Precious Lord, linger near when my light is almost gone. Hear my cry, hear my call, hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home when the darkness appears and the night draws near and the day is past and gone. At the river I stand, guide my feet, hold my hand, my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn through the storm, through the night. Lead me on to the light. Take my hand, oh Lord, take my hand. Lord, please take our hand and lead us home.
You know, if you ever saw the movie Selma, you know that Dr. King loved that song. And he would call Mahalia Jackson 2 and 3 in the morning and say, sing to me, because the spirit has to be fed. So thank you again to our wonderful songstress for bringing us that beautiful, gorgeous, inspirational song.
Absolutely, Barbara. And it's our pleasure now. You know, we often speak of all the great partners that we have. And I can tell you that, you know, when we were in Georgia in the middle of the election during 2021, when we looked over our shoulder, we didn't have to look over our shoulder. We knew that standing shoulder to shoulder with us was the National Organization for Women. Whenever we looked around, we didn't have to call their name. We didn't have to yell their name. It was simply almost a whisper. Almost didn't even need to whisper for them to be there, Barbara.
Wait a minute. They brought carloads of people to Brunswick, Georgia, to stand with the Ahmaud Arbery family. So we know that the National Organization for Women is always on the scene doing the hard work. It is our pleasure to introduce the president
and CEO
of the National Organization for Women, Kristen Nunes.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. I want to thank Barbara and Daryl for always welcoming me. Since I moved to DC area in 2019, Barbara took me under her wings and has been a mentor, so I'm always thankful that now I can step up and be a part of this movement. And today is such a beautiful day, and I think it's great that we're all here to really, truly take time to commemorate the 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. We know 57 years ago, the passage of the Voting Rights Act pretty much let the United States know that it was putting us in a position to be more better and equitable it let us feel like there was a path forward. By outlawing race-based voter suppression rules, it reaffirmed the fundamental principle that America can only truly reach true liberation if all its citizens had a free, fair, and safe right to vote, and their voices were heard and counted. And it sent the message that racism and discrimination was not a part of American values that we want. But unfortunately, we have to be honest about what we've seen, right? And unfortunately, our country has veered so far from the vision our leaders had when they drafted and passed the Voting Rights Act in 1965. And that we find ourselves fighting to retain more voting rights now than we in 2022 than we did back in 1965 when the first Voting Rights Act was passed. But as we have learned over time and time again for nearly 6 decades, nothing scares those in power more than an unwavering will of the power of the people. And otherwise, they would not work so hard to try to restrict it from us and try to suppress it. But each day that we're fighting, and we've heard all these voter rights restrictions, we've heard what they're trying to do, we face another effort of extremists trying to dismantle our basic civil rights. And each day it gets harder for some of us to keep trying to fight, because not only are we fighting for rights, we're fighting for rights to health, we're fighting for our right to be counted as whole. But we have to let them know, and we have to remember that this is what oppressors do. They try to oppress. And they want us to get so despaired and so hopeless that they give up and that we give up. But we have to do again, as we've done over and over again in our history, is remind them that they always underestimate the power of the people.
That's right.
And we know that fewer candidates, that we know that voters favor candidates who think about electoral policies, that want paid access, that want access to equality. We know this. But partisan gerrymandering and restricted voting rights have tried to stack the deck against inclusive democracy. And since the 2016 presidential election, we have been battling even harder and harder and harder ever before in trying to maintain our voting rights. As Barbara pointed out earlier in her wonderful PowerPoint presentation, there are over 50 laws that were passed, voting restriction laws passed in over 36 states, but there are over 440 bills that were introduced trying to restrict voting access in 2021 alone. And this effort to suppress the vote is coordinated, and it's oppressive, and it's intentional, because they want to silence our voices. They want to keep us from electing leaders who will represent us and our ideals and advocate for equality from all areas. But we have to remind them that voting is not a privilege. It is our birthright. Too many generations have fought too hard, sacrificed too much for us to allow extremists to continue to put assaults on us, to assault our communities. We must never let them know that they will win. We never just vote for ourselves. We vote to support everyone and uplift all. Our ancestors and leaders from the past did not put their lives on the line to continue to perpetuate segregation and discrimination, but they did so under the knowledge that we are all created equal and deserve a safe and just life, and more importantly, to protect our legacy. And although the Congress has not passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act because it's been blocked by inaction and a systemic racist blockbuster like the filibuster, I call it the blockbuster, the filibuster. We have to remind them what John Lewis has always said. And we have to remind them something even more important, and I think Tiara said it in this last song. We have to remind them we are already whole as a people, and they can't take that away from us. We already have joy in us, and they cannot take that away from us. We already have the power and strength we need in us as people, and they cannot take that away from us either. And our ability to fight and the fight that we need to reclaim what we deserve, our right to a safe and fair election, is already in our legacy. So as Rep. Lewis said, that good trouble will redeem the soul of America. It's never more important than right now for us to turn up at the polls in November. This midterm is going to save lives. And I want to end with a wonderful quote from the future governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams. I know we must have people of good conscience who stand up against oppression. I know we must have people who understand that social justice belongs to all of us. And that wakes me up every morning. That makes me fight even harder. So as we're here today to commemorate the 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, let us all remember that we all still vote because we all still have hope. Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks, Christian. Again, Christian Nunes as president of the National Organization for Women and one of the strong partners that we're so pleased to have in our cadre of partners as we're in this voting rights battle throughout the country. But you know, Barbara, we talk about, and people, I don't know if folks really get it when we talk about this multi-racial democracy that we're working toward, and what we're edging toward, and what we're pushing for. You know, the original American was what? Native.
Right.
Our Native American brothers and
Yes.
sisters. And we cannot leave them out, Barbara.
Well, our indigenous brothers and sisters, the First Nation of the United States, they are also targeted for voter suppression. Remember, everybody, in 2020, it was the Navajo Nation that made all the difference in Arizona. So when people think about voter suppression, they don't realize how much voter suppression is targeted at Native American communities in South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arizona, all throughout this country. It is our pleasure now to bring up a fierce justice fighter. He is amazing. We've had the pleasure of meeting him in Tulsa as we have fought for reparations for that evil 1921 massacre. We want to thank Attorney Demario Simmons and the law firm of Schulte, Roth, and Zabel for winning the latest fight so that now that they can try to get reparations in that case. But standing beside his black brothers and sisters was one of the leaders of the Cherokee Nation. I'm talking about none other than Joe Deere.
Hey, how's everybody today? I'm glad to be here talking about the John Lewis and the Voting Rights Act. I mean, that thing has brought us a long way. As a tribal nation standing with the race massacre and coexisting in North Tulsa with our African American brothers, we still want to fill the gap. We've been fighting our whole life as indigenous people, and we continue to fight. We've had land takeovers. We've had several times that we've been oppressed in this deal. So as we continue to fight with oppression and voting, we continue as indigenous people all across the country, especially still here in several instances now, the boarding schools all across America, and a lot of our youth have been killed. So we understand the fights as we go through in America. Indigenous people, especially here in Cherokee Nation, we want to fill those gaps and continue to be able to hear our votes and make them count and support guys that we have in Congress that actually support people that support our Indian laws and our treaties that need to be upheld, that were made. So we want the government to hear us as indigenous people, to honor the treaties that we made with them. So we stand here at Cherokee Nation in Tulsa, in my district. We will continue to fight and fight those fights to get our voices heard. When John Lewis started the Writing Votes Act, he was a leader. Maxine Waters carries it on, and our several people with Congress. So I'm not going to take up much of your time today. I want you to know we will join together and fight for you, and especially Indigenous people and all people of color, to fight and continue that fight. And I thank you guys for having me on today. And remember here, Indigenous people, we all work together and we coexist with our African American community right here in Tulsa. Thank you. Widow.
Awesome, amazing, powerful young leader. Thank you so much, Joe Deere. You've been with us from the beginning of the show today. Thank you for your amazing leadership. We can't wait to work with our Native American brothers and sisters to continue working with you around the country to fight to protect all voting rights.
Absolutely, Barbara, you're right on point on that. And folks, you know, again, we talk about diversity, we talk about inclusion, we talk about the oneness in person of achieving that multiracial democracy here in America. It's our pleasure to bring forward now the first woman to serve as the president and CEO of the National Organization of Concerned Black Men. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Karen McCray.
Hello, everyone. As I said, I'm the first female CEO of the National Organization of Concerned Black Men. And why? Because women don't have a problem with yes, and we know that no means maybe. We do not stop, we keep going, and we push forward. CBM is proud to be a sponsor or co-sponsor and partner with the Transformative Justice Coalition. I also have the honor and privilege of serving on their board. We make sure things get done at TJC, and at CBM, and every city they're in, we're in. Every city they go to, we're going to go to. We will not stop. We have a saying now, or a theme that we're using at CBM called, we ride together, we rise together. So when you're in Philadelphia, we'll be in Philadelphia. When you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we'll be in Tulsa, Oklahoma. When you're in Milwaukee, we'll be in Milwaukee. Wherever TJC is, Concerned Black Men will be there too. Thank you, Barbara and Darryl, for this opportunity. We look forward to the work that's got to be done.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McCray. You are amazing. You created that gorgeous flyer that we've been using. Yes, folks, a lot of us are multi-talented, and we are always appreciative of those talents. We now bring up someone we had the pleasure of meeting through the mighty Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. He wants the nation to know that Arkansas should be on our list of states where the vote needs to be protected because the vote suppression is through the roof. And he introduced us to one of the most powerful former elected officials in Arkansas, the mighty, amazing Joshua Ng Price.
Mighty amazing, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I am just so pleased to be here, so honored to be here on the 57th anniversary of the passing of the Voter Rights Act of 1965. And I just want to thank Transformative Justice Coalition and attorneys Barbara Arnwine and Darryl Jones for giving me this opportunity to talk about what's going on in Arkansas, because y'all, Arkansas is a poster child for voter suppression in this country. And what's going on in Arkansas, there's a play bill that's being passed all across the South, from Georgia to Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee. What's going on in Arkansas is happening all across the South, and it's a strategic plan to suppress votes from people of color. So I'm going to talk about Arkansas a little bit. Arkansas is dead last in this country for voter turnout. Dead last at 54%. National average is 67%. Arkansas is dead last in voter registration at 63%. National average is 88%. Arkansas is number one in rejection of mail-in ballots at 6.4%. The national average is 0.8%. So Arkansas is 8 times more likely to reject your absentee ballot. And they have created a system that makes it hard for people to vote via mail. And that's affecting people of color, it's affecting seniors, it's affecting people with disabilities. Arkansas recently passed a law, and I testified against this law, and we got it thrown out by a local circuit judge, but the Arkansas Supreme Court upheld it. So we're going to take it national now, to the federal level. They passed a law that if you vote by mail and you sign your ballot, they're going to compare your signature to your original voter registration when you turned 18. And if that signature doesn't match, they're going to reject it. I don't know about y'all, my signature doesn't look anything like it did when I was 18. So not only do signatures change over time, but you're talking about, what about age? What about disability? What about arthritis, right? Just, what about Parkinson's? My mom had a stroke. Her hand shakes. Her signature doesn't look anything like it used to. So is she not able to vote now? And this is what's happening. Voting is not a luxury. It is an American right. And we should be making sure that our marginalized communities, people of color, Black, Asian, Hispanic, Latinx, people with disabilities, young people, they have every access to the ballot. Not making it harder, but making it more accessible. They're closing polling locations all over Arkansas. I've got some very disturbing statistics. In 2020, we had 1,070 polling locations across the whole state of Arkansas. In the primary we just had, we have 891. They closed 179 polling locations across the state of Arkansas. That's 17%. The county I'm from originally, it's called Pike County, had 6 polling locations. Now they have 1. 1 for the whole county. And their excuse is, well, it's not a very populated county, so we're going to cut costs and just have 1 polling location. But geographically, it's big. So people have to drive 45 minutes one way to vote, and then 45 minutes back. So what if you don't have transportation? What if you have a disability? What if you have to take off work and you don't have childcare? They're not thinking about that. So this is the things they're doing to make it harder for people to vote. They gerrymandered Pulaski County. That's where I was election commissioner. I oversaw the elections in Pulaski County, which is our largest county, most populous county, most diverse county. They split that county into 3 congressional districts, and if you take the new map and you put it on top of a demographic map, you have the Black community in this part of the county, the Hispanic community, and they cut them out and they stuck them in majority white communities, and then they brought in rural white communities into that congressional district. Because one of my mentors, State Senator Joyce Elliott, a very powerful Black outspoken woman, she ran for Congressional District 2. She almost won against a white man. So they went in and they gerrymandered that district so that no person of color can be elected to that seat in 10 years. In fact, Arkansas, out of every state in the country that has a fairly large people of color population, Arkansas has never elected a person of color to statewide office. Never elected a person of color to statewide office or to Congress. And it's the only state in the country where Arkansas is 20% African American. Arkansas is 10% Hispanic. But they've never elected a person of color to statewide office or to Congress. I'm going to tell y'all a quick story that I'm going to end with, because this is not just affecting Arkansas, but I want to give a shout out to my Asian American population, and I want to encourage them to get out and vote. Yeah. There are 20 million Asian American and Pacific Islanders in this country, according to the last census, and that's underreported because Asian Americans are not likely to fill out the census. 100,000 in Arkansas alone, 20,000 Marshallese in the state of Arkansas. The highest Marshallese population outside the Marshall Islands lives in the state of Arkansas. And I met with these folks. They said they have not had a single elected official reach out to them and ask about the issues affecting their community. Not one time. Not their mayor, not their state rep, not their state senator, nothing. Fort Smith, Arkansas, 10% of that town is Vietnamese. And they told me that they do not have a single polling location in their community. They don't have any poll workers that speak Vietnamese to help them through that situation and help them through that process. Folks are doing this on purpose to exclude people of color from voting. And it's not just affecting Black communities, it's affecting Asian communities, it's affecting Pacific Islander communities, it's affecting Hispanic and Latinx communities. My mom is from the Philippines. She came to this country in 1975. The Philippines was under martial law. She had no ability to vote. Their president, Marcos, had his opponent killed, and he stayed in office for 21 years. She came to this country to have a better life for me and my sister, and also to have that right to vote and that freedom of speech. 2 of her cousins went to prison for 3 months for peacefully protesting. What would happen in the Philippines is happening here. And we saw January 6th how quickly that could happen. Our democracy is so fragile. It could be gone at any minute. So we have to be vigilant. We have to protect that democracy at all costs. In 2019, my mom went to go vote. We went together. We went to 2 separate lines because it wasn't that busy. So I went right through, showed my ID. They said, oh, I don't need to see your ID. I know that you're the commissioner in this county. I said, well, you still need to see it. That's the law. So they looked at it. I get to the next step. I look, my mom is still stuck in line. So she kind of waves at me. And she said, Josh, I showed them my driver's license. I'm in the poll book. But they said, I need to see your passport to prove you're really an American citizen. Wow. That's not legal. That's not legal. And I said, that's not correct. You've shown a valid driver's license. Your name's in the poll book. You're good. You know what the poll worker said to me when I confronted her? She said, I'm sorry, Commissioner. I didn't realize this was your mother. And I said, what does it matter if it's my mother or not? How often are you doing this? How often are you racially profiling someone and targeting them and asking them? And I spoke to the Filipino community, and that had happened all across the board to them. And they said they didn't know their rights. So they went home, tried to find their passport, couldn't find it, couldn't make it back in the polls in time. So guess what? Their vote was just suppressed. Now they're disenfranchised. Why should I bother voting when they're going to create all these extra hoops for me to vote? This is happening. This is happening in Arkansas. It's happening all across the country. And that's why we have to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We have to do it because every state's doing its own thing. Nothing's consistent. And they're making it harder for people to vote, especially in the South. And Maxine Waters had it exactly right. If our vote did not matter, they wouldn't be trying so hard to stop us from voting. They wouldn't be trying so hard where they're closing your polling location. Pulaski County, very diverse county, 120 polling locations, they went down to 96. And out of all those they closed were all in black and brown communities. You don't think that's on purpose? That's definitely on purpose. So I want to leave with this. I want to encourage everyone that's watching out there in social media, to my Asian American brothers and sisters, also to my black and Hispanic and Latinx brothers and sisters, do not let them take away your right to vote. Do not let them intimidate you. Do not let them stop you from getting to the polls. Get out to vote like your life depends on it, because it does. Thank you very much.
All right. Wow. That's what I call a speech. Now that's what I call a speech. Wow. Thank you so much. And we know we're going to be hearing about you, because I think I heard a future congressperson speaking. So let's keep up this great work. Go ahead, Dan.
You know, one of the things that you'll continually hear me say, and you've heard me say continually this afternoon, is about this multiracial democracy. And it's important, I believe, that we all hear about the experiences that are going on in the Asian American Pacific Island community, sending people back for passports in order for them to be able to exercise that right to vote illegally, is one of the things that we need to know about and we need to lift up. But you know, Barbara, when we were down in Georgia in the 2021 runoff election, we had the opportunity, you know, we had been with the Georgia Coalition of the People's Agenda in previous outings. But when we got on the ground in Georgia with Helen Butler and the Georgia Coalition of the People's Agenda and started going door to door, doing votercades, doing everything to be certain that African American, brown, as well as young voters were coming out to be able to vote. That was something else, Barbara.
Postcarding, phone banking, church going, everything where we could reach voters. You know, we want you to talk and hear from one of the nation's most powerful voices when it comes to voting rights. She's been featured on the cover of national magazines. She is one of the unsung heroes of our movement. We're talking about the executive director of the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda, Helen Butler.
Well, thank you, Daryl and Barbara. I am so happy to be with you today. Uh, Here we are again commemorating the 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act without the protections that were put in place in 1965 by the leader and formers of the People's Agenda, Dr. Joseph Lowry, Reverend James Orange, Rita Samuels, Earl Shinholster, and so many other unsung heroes that made it possible for us to have the right to vote. And here we are. Again, Georgia being one of the major battlegrounds for voter suppression. We know that we had a major turnout, but we're saying no matter what you put in our way, we're going to fight to protect our right to vote. So the message is let's do it again. Protect our freedoms, our freedom to choose, our freedom, our right to vote, our freedom to have quality education, freedom to have economic power. But our young people are saying, yes, the ballot, as Dr. King said, give us the ballot, is the way to that freedom. But we're going to do everything beyond that ballot. We're going to make sure that we are vote ready to fight voter suppression and to elect representatives that will represent our issues. We know what's at stake on the ballot in Georgia. 1 U.S. Senator, 14 congressional members, a governor, and 7 constitutional officers, the lieutenant governor, attorney general, the secretary of state, the commissioners of labor, insurance, agriculture, and a state school superintendent. Of course, we know there were 2 public service commissioners, but because there was a fight to protect voting rights, the 2 public service commissioner races are being delayed. But we have 56 state senators and 180 state representatives that are at stake on this upcoming election in November. So we're doing a Your Voice, Your Vote tour to make sure our people are able to fight those barriers of absentee voting that was put in place with SB 202. We're making sure that they know those deadlines when they have to be able to vote. We're registering voters right now. We're getting them educated through candidates forums, to town hall meetings. Yes, Barbara, we're mobilizing through phone banks, texts, mailers, and we need everyone to be our partners again. Transformative justice, we got those phone banks, phone texts, and mailers ready for you. We're going to provide rides to the poll. We have a website and an app, ridetothepoll.com. We want you to get ready. We're also protecting that right to vote. You know, Barbara, you are the mother of election protection. So we are recruiting poll workers. We're recruiting poll monitors to assist people to be able to vote without barriers. We're monitoring those boards of elections so we know when they're trying to close polling locations or to stop us from exercising our right to vote. And as you know, voting, of course, is a sacred right and a moral obligation. And we need the protections again of a John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act and DC statehood. But in the meantime, we're going to fight to protect and have access to the ballot for all of Georgia's voters. And as Representative Alicia Thomas Searcy sang in the well of the Georgia legislature, we ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. We're on this march to journey and a march to justice, and we're gonna make sure with all of our partners that we protect that right to vote. Thank you, Daryl and Barbara, for being such great partners, and we're in this fight together.
Keep up the good work.
And you know, Barbara, I think that Helen Butler put it best when she talked about the partnership that we have
Yes.
and working together. You know, ladies and gentlemen, one of the partners that we also have that we've been working with is someone who's been in the fight for a long time, who's really just grounded. Legendary, just grounded in the fight. She was one of the co-founders of the National Farm Workers Association. She comes to us today out of California. She's in the middle of one of her own meetings that's going on there, but she's taken time aside because she values the work, she values the fight, she values the need of the Voting Rights Act and its protection. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our pleasure to present to you none other than Dolores Huerta.
Okay. Hello, everybody. What a wonderful day to celebrate. And we know that we have so much more good coming ahead of us. We're really, really grateful for everybody that's tuned in today. And we want to thank you so much. And we know that we need the Latino community also to come out and vote in big ways. And we're going to make sure that we do all that we can to get them to come out and vote. And we have to celebrate this day with action. We're not just going to talk about it. We're not going to just read about it. We're going to go out there and make more history, following on the footsteps of all of those that came before us. So I want to thank everybody here. And yeah, let's get out there and let's go do the job. You know, Abraham Lincoln said that the ballot is more powerful than the bullet, okay? So we're going to make that happen to make sure that every single person that can vote has that right to vote. We want to keep that dream alive. And those that can't vote, hey, they can get out there, they can help us talk to all of the people that can't vote, but they can get out there, knock on the doors, pass out the leaflets, make the phone calls, because we know that the power of the vote is the power of the people. So we, the people, are going to get out there and do the job, keep democracy alive, save our democracy, and we know that we are the only ones that can do it. The power of the people. Si se puede. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Si se puede.
Si se puede.
Yes. Now, everybody, Kansas, women fighting for our right to vote, women at the forefront fighting for our freedoms. We are so lucky to have with us today somebody who I view as an inspiration to me. She helped me when I came to D.C. to learn the ropes. She has been a leader fighting for a multiracial democracy. She is one of the few people I know whose title is feminist. I am talking about the president, founder of the feminist majority, Eleanor Smith.
Thank you so much, Barbara and Daryl. And yes, Dolores, si se puede. Dolores and I have been in the Sisters in the Struggle for many, many years. And Barbara, you always have been there also. We don't count years anymore, we count decades, but that's okay. We are in a struggle right now that is extremely challenging. We're here to celebrate the Voting Rights Act, but we need to get it repaired. We have to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill, and we have to take back our rights because we have an extreme right-wing movement in this country that is destined, they are determined to take away the rights that we have won in the last 50 years or so. And it's one by one by one. But what happened in Kansas tells us even though they don't play fair, we can defeat them because we have the numbers, and we can win even when it's stacked against us. And if we don't know what happened in Kansas, I think everybody does, but just to be sure, they chose to put on a ballot in a closed primary an anti-abortion bill that would cost people their lives, women their lives especially, and especially African American women, Latino women, and poor women. And they thought it was all a done deal because in the off-year primary in August, the only contested seats were Republican seats, and only about 300,000 or 400,000 people usually show up. But what happened this year? There was a ballot, an amendment, and they weren't going to sneak it in. And we organized and organized on our side, and almost 1 million people voted and defeated it. That's what we're about. We can't listen to the naysayers. This election is one of the most important elections in the history of our country. We cannot lose the House and the Senate. We have to increase the majority in the Senate. We have to get a net of 2 more seats in the Senate, and then we have to end the filibuster on voting rights, right? Oh, yes. End the filibuster on voting rights. End the filibuster on reproductive health rights. End the filibuster on gun control. End the filibuster on decent social gains in our country. And it can be done. We just need 2 more seats than we have now to break the filibuster. And then we have to keep the House. The House, because of one of the most skillful political leaders in the history of our country, the Speaker, Pelosi, she makes it look easy. She gets everything through. Yes. But we only have a working 4-vote majority. Wow. And they are targeting it. About over 30 seats are too close to call. We are the difference. We need a gender gap. We need to make sure that these voting suppression rules that we can get around them. We know that they're cheating, but we can do it because we have the vast majority. And so on this day, what I hope that we all come away from is the inspiration of the impossible dream. Oh, yes. Every inch of the way, it's been hard. We gain a little bit and they push us back and we go back forward. It's been like this. Well, we're eventually going over the top for good. Yes. And we're not going to listen to the naysayers that say they're going to win. We're going to win because we have to. In fact, I hope we can deliver that message so that we have unbelievably high turnout. And the feminist majority is going to be working side by side with you. We will travel. But most importantly, we are going to be on the campuses all over the country. If the young vote big, we win. And we have got to inspire them to vote. They cannot think that this is useless. We can make the world we want to be. And there's so many things that are being blocked that maybe don't have a this or that. But the corporate interests don't want climate change to be dealt with realistically. And fortunately, the first climate change bill now is moving forward, maybe this weekend. I always think that you can't just say, okay, we won. Okay, we lost, and we'll be back. No. The fight for liberty, the fight for justice demands eternal vigilance. And we cannot think if we win in 2022 that it's over. We have 2024, but forget the years. We have just got to make sure they know we are not going to take it anymore. And we are going to have full voting rights. And we are not only going to do that, we're going to increase the number of people voting. A democracy has to have a full vote. And when we increase it, we don't need to worry because we are the vast majority. Thank you. And I know one thing, it's the beginning. Don't get tired. Tiredness is for some other day. We are going to make it hot or cold, and right now it's very hot, but we are going to make it because that impossible dream is possible if we not only believe it, but that we deliver, and I know we will. Thank you very much. I'll see you on the campaign trail.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Thank you. Eternal vigilance. And there's no organization that has represented that commitment to eternal vigilance. Their offices are in the mighty Thurgood Marshall Center Trust. We, Darrell and I, and so many others are members of the National Bar Association. Oh, we got everybody. History was made this week when you read about the Justice Department charging the 4 officers in the Breonna Taylor case. We have with us the lawyer for the family of Breonna Taylor, the president of the National Bar Association, none other than
Lanita Baker.
Greetings, Transformative Justice Coalition, the Rainbow Push Coalition, and all other participating organizations here today. Special thanks to Ms. Barbara Arwine and Darrell Jones and the Reverend Jesse Jackson for organizing this call to action in honor of the 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And still we vote. My name is Lanita Baker, and I am honored to be here serving as the 80th president of the National Bar Association. The National Bar Association was founded in 1925, and it is the nation's oldest and largest organization of predominantly African-American attorneys, judges, and law students. This year, our theme is Fulfilling Our Legacy, Recommitted to Our Purpose. And our priority, programmatic, and legislative focus areas are voting rights and election protection, criminal justice reform, healthcare equity, environmental justice, education, and economic justice. But you heard our first priority will be voting rights and election protection. Because without voting rights and election protection, we would never achieve the other focus areas. All of those areas are tied to having equal and unfettered access to the ballot box. Today, we acknowledge the 57th anniversary of the passing of the Voting Rights Act, and we are still fighting in 2022 for that equal access to vote. This year, we are asking folks to use your voice and vote. I don't want to hear that voting doesn't make a difference, because as so many people have said here today, if it did make a difference, they wouldn't be trying to suppress our right to vote. The National Bar Association will be working alongside organizations like Transformative Justice Coalition to register voters and protect their right to vote. We are asking everyone, including our NBA members, to encourage their families, friends, and neighbors to vote. When you go vote, take someone else. Matter of fact, fill your entire car up with people to go vote. NBA members will be volunteering to help register people to vote. We will be working election protection hotlines, and we will be at the polls so that people like Commissioner Price's mother is not faced with illegal requests in order to exercise their right to vote. The NBA's commitment to our founding purpose, justice and civil rights for all, is needed just as much today as it was during our founding in 1925. We will continue to fight alongside each and every one of you to protect our fundamental and our precious right to vote and use our voice. Thank you.
Oh, you are wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I was teasing Lanita Baker because when I was up in the office, I saw a bag that had Alpha Kappa Alpha on it. I wasn't certain it was hers. And then she said, well, you didn't know that. So when I looked down at your toes and saw that they were pink, that was the giveaway. Ladies and gentlemen, as Lanita Baker indicated, You know, we are in a fight, and we are so glad to have them as partners in the fight nationally at every polling location, Barbara. You know, you started the 866 Our Vote telephone number and voter and hotline, and when there are problems at the poll. And I'm so glad to know that the Transformative Justice Coalition and the National Bar Association, through our election protection fellow, Lynn Whitfield, is now, who is here, is on the ground and will be all over polling places throughout this country. So whenever there's a problem, we'll be able to address it.
There she is,
But you
Lynn
know,
Whitfield.
and you're going to hear from Lynn. But you know, we're at the point now where we've got to be certain, Barbara, that we get our young voters protected.
Yes.
That we get our young voters to the poll.
Yes.
And you know, I don't know how best to do it, but I do know this, that we have Tiara Rolls that is back to sing a song to
Right.
sort of encourage it all, Barbara.
All right.
Tiara Rolls.
There we go.
I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. Everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. Never found anyone to fulfill my needs. A lonely place to be. So I learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I did as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity. Because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. The greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I did as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity. Because the greatest chance, that special place that you've been dreaming of, leads you to a lonely place. Find your strength in
Love and kindness. Nothing like it. Love and kindness.
Children are our future, Barbara.
Yes.
And we celebrate them. And at this point, we're going to lift up some of these leaders that are the future, young leaders that are future leaders in this country. We see high things for all of these people that you're going to be hearing from. And Barbara, do you want to introduce our first person?
Well, actually, you should introduce
You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You should do Drake.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, it's our pleasure to bring up a young man who hails out of Anne Arundel County, great county that I'm from. He, by all accounts, is an overachiever, and that just makes him average because overachieving is what he does. We're so excited to welcome him. He's a student at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Drake Smith.
Thank you. Hey, Drake.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to say I want to thank Daryl and Barbara just for keeping the march of civil rights alive. And like they said, my name is Drake Smith. I'm a 19-year-old sophomore at Lincoln University, the nation's first HBCU, and we're out of Pennsylvania. And when I return to campus, I actually have the pleasure and honor of serving as president of the Student Government Association after being elected by my peers last semester. Thank you. And I've been invited here today to speak about the college student's perspective when it comes to voting rights. And I want to start by quoting President Johnson. In March of 1965, this country was at a crossroads. We had Americans fighting in the jungles of Vietnam, but also fighting here at home in the streets. And in front of a joint session of Congress, President Johnson urged the passage of the Voting Rights Act, but he also gave a stark warning. He said, even if we pass this bill, the battle will not be over. And 57 years later, he was spot on. The battle is still not over. All across this nation, as we've heard, there are open-aired plots to take the vote out of the hands of marginalized people. Langston Hughes once said, and Langston Hughes also being a Lincoln alumni, he said, tomorrow, I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. But we have made it to Langston Hughes' tomorrow, and now they're trying to send us back to the kitchen. If they're willing to overturn an entire election, they're willing to storm the Capitol and try and topple our democracy, that means their hate knows no ends. And as a college student, I am outraged, but luckily, I am not alone in my indignation. And at Lincoln, I found a group of other outraged students. And we, along with our advisors, we went to work, we knocked on doors up and down campus, we burned up all the ink in the library, printing flyers. We brought candidates to speak to campus, to share the issues and their policies, and in the end, we increased voter registration on Lincoln University's campus by 30%. And we're still not finished. More students have decided to join our group, and we have a robust plan to turn out as many students as possible on November 8th. Because at Lincoln, like colleges around the United States, there is power in our vote. But the other side knows that too, and I have a story to share with you. A little over a decade ago, Lincoln University elected the first black man to the local school board in Chester County, Pennsylvania. the powers at be saw this and they moved the voting precinct off campus. About a mile down the road, they moved it to a defunct railroad depot. This depot had no handicap accessibility, one bathroom, 3 parking spaces, and it was dimly lit. And they thought that would stop the students. But the next election, which happened to be the election in which they voted Barack Obama in, the students showed up. And at one point during the election, students were standing in line. And mind you, this is a railroad depot. They're next to train tracks. And the election officials laughed as the train came down the tracks. They didn't warn the students that a train was coming. But all's well that ends well. No students got hurt. And we elected the slate that we wanted to elect. And then a group of local community members, along with students, sued the Chester County Board of Elections in federal court, and now the polling place is safely back on campus.
Yes, yes.
And that is where the students will be voting this November. And right now, students at Lincoln and all around this country, they're agitated. They're angry about the Dobbs decision. They're angry that there are attempts to erase black and brown histories out of the classrooms and to shut up the LGBTQ plus community when it comes to education. But over the next 30 days, students, they're agitated now, but these next 30 days, next 90 days until Election Day, they're going to get educated. They're going to learn the issues, learn the candidates, and they're going to learn what they can do. And then, once the time has come, once they're educated, the students on November 8th will get activated. They'll go to the polls in droves, and they will vote. And this is our plan at Lincoln University. This is our plan. I urge any college students watching me right now, all across the country, but especially at HBCUs, to come up with a plan right now, because your vote on campus might be the most important. It might be the turning point. And I'll close with this. This fight that we are in, it is a divine fight. This fight has always been led by those with a higher calling. With a higher calling. And I want to close with this. On the back of the chapel at Lincoln University, the Mary Dodd Brown Chapel, which has hosted some of the most brilliant black minds in U.S. history, there's a small stone on the back right behind the pulpit, and it's carved with a scripture. Romans chapter 13, verse 12. The night is far spent. The day is now at hand. So I say to you all listening to me today, let us go forth and fight the good fight, fight God's fight. Thank you.
Drake Smith, everybody. HBCU student.
Absolutely.
Lincoln University.
Leader.
First, did you say
Leader.
the first HBCU, if I heard him correctly?
Leader.
And a future leader. That's right, Barbara. That's right. But ladies and gentlemen, Barbara and I now are really pleased to bring up a young lady who is just the epitome of a fighter, the epitome of giving it all and putting it all on the line for her cause. Barbara, I can recall with regards to this next speaker that she's with the she's one of the national organizing director and the co-founder of an organization called UNPAC.
UNPAC.
Right? And the Political Action Committee is usually a PAC. Well, this is UNPAC.
UNPAC.
UNPAC. And
Fair election.
Fair election. These are young folks that are getting in the streets, off of the sidewalks to stand up for voting rights.
Right.
This is what they're about. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you personally about her commitment.
Well,
because she and I went to jail together standing up for voting rights over at the Capitol. So I know how deep her commitment goes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our pleasure to introduce as our next speaker, Jocelyn Garcia.
Hello, everyone. Buenos tardes. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Barbara and Daryl, for your leadership and for all the speakers. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and many of those giants are you all. And so I'm extremely grateful for everything that you all have done. My name is Jocelyn Garcia. I am the co-founder and the executive director of Unpack. And I am also the older sister of two younger brothers and an extremely proud daughter of Mexican and Guatemalan immigrants. My parents, they came here to this country when they were also young, in their late teens, because they were fleeing poverty and violence in their own home countries. And they came here to the United States because they were told that in this country, it doesn't matter who you are, but your humanity will be respected and you will have the opportunity to realize all of your dreams. And although my parents, they are some of the most precious people in my life, I haven't seen that dream fully come to a realization. And much of that is because of the kind of democracy that we have had here. Because we live in a country that doesn't actually respect a person's humanity and dignity. They respect power, they respect whiteness, and we cannot afford to live in a country like that. We cannot afford to live in a country that chooses to prioritize power over a person's livelihood. And so at Unpack, we are a national organization of young people who have been organizing for over a year to create a democracy that actually represents and works for all of us, no matter who you are, no matter the color of your skin, no matter where you were born, no matter what your sexuality, no matter what your religious beliefs are. And we have done that in several ways. And part of the reason why this is so important, part of the reason why we're here today and why it's important to protect our democracy, to continue pushing and fighting for it, because everything that we love, everything that we care about has been on the line and continues to be on the line. And for young people, our entire future and generations of futures are on the line here. We can't afford to not do anything. And we especially cannot afford to stop believing that a different reality than this one is possible. And it is because of that, that earlier this year, over 20 young people hunger striked for over 23 days. And we were joined by leaders such as Barbara and Daryl in that fight, who also, participated in the hunger strike. And at one point, as Daryl mentioned, we took our hunger strike to jail, where we continued to not eat, where we continued to put our bodies on the line in an effort to save our democracy, in an effort of creating democracy that, again, protects our livelihoods, that protects our interests as people. And so we have continued to do that work. We will continue to do what it takes because, again, our futures are here on the line. And I have been organizing since I was in high school. I am now 28 years old. And the reason I do this is because I do genuinely believe that we can create a democracy that protects our livelihoods, that respects our dignities. But I know that that's not going to be possible if we stop believing in that. And so I thank you all so much for being here. And despite the fact that young people throughout our entire lifetime, we have never seen a functional democracy that actually respects our dignity, we are going to continue fighting for it. And we're going to continue showing up, not just in voting, not just at the polls, but in the streets as well, in the classrooms, in our own dining rooms, in our families, in our personal relationships, because that's what it's going to take. And what we have been able to do this past year, what we did with Barbara and Daryl and so many others leaders here to pass the Freedom to Vote Act, these are all important pillars and foundations that we have laid to continue this fight so that one day we do see a country, for one day we do see a democracy that protects us, that respects our dignity, that values our humanity, no matter who we are. And so thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being the leaders whose the shoulders are that we stand on. And I hope that you continue this fight with us because young people, we're going to need you all out here. It is on the line here. It is a long marathon. But as long as we continue to believe that a different reality is possible than this one, we're going to do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so, so much. It is such a pleasure to work with you. I'm sure we will have an opportunity for more civil disobedience coming up. So let me now introduce someone who is visionary. This young man called me up out of nowhere, never met me, and said, ma'am, I heard about you, I know about your work, and we HBCU students are planning a 184-mile march from Albany, Georgia to Atlanta, Georgia. And we're going to go through some of the most difficult voter counties in Georgia where they have lynched black people for voting, where there's a history of suppression. And we're going to go and we're going to register people during that march. And I'm calling you up because I need elder wisdom. I said, honey, you called the right person. I said, I am ready to do whatever you need, because when young people lead, we got to be there for them. We got to encourage, we got to support, we got to invest in them. So it is my pleasure to bring up one of the gentlemen you're going to be hearing about a whole lot in the months to come and in the future. I'm talking about no other than the leader of Souls to Freedom, Souls to Freedom, the mighty, amazing DeAndre Gates.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Ms. Barber, for that introduction. My name is DeAndre Gates. I'm a graduate of Jackson State University, a historically black college down in Jackson, Mississippi. I'm also one of the lead organizers of the Souls of Freedom March. Listen, I don't know about you, but this morning I woke up with Georgia on my mind. So I need everyone to mark your calendars for September the 16th through the 23rd, because we're going to be creating awareness around voting rights. We're going to be creating awareness around student debt cancellation, and we're going to be creating awareness around human rights as it relates to reproductive justice, as it relates to gender equity, as it relates to affordable housing. And I need everyone to get to Georgia. Whatever your method of travel is, whether it's by plane, by car, by walking, if you got to get on a bus to come to Georgia, we need everyone in Georgia on Friday, September the 16th. We are going to start down in Albany, Georgia, and we're going to march over the course of 8 days to Atlanta, Georgia, 184 miles. That's right, people, 184 miles. Along the way, we're going to be stopping in cities. We're going to register voters in rural Georgia. As you can see right now, I'm sitting in the car because we have boots on the ground with some of the team right now in rural Georgia doing canvassing for the march. So I need all of you to mark your calendar, September 16th through the 23rd, to get to Georgia. We need you to mobilize your organizations, to mobilize your friends, to mobilize your people, because we understand that there is power in numbers. And we need to let this administration and let our local leaders, our state leaders, our federal leaders know that we are pushing forward, and whatever it takes, we're willing to make the sacrifice to ensure that we are pushing our community forward, that we're pushing the state of Georgia forward, and that we are, most importantly, pushing black and brown people forward. So again, I need you to mark your calendar, September the 16th through the 23rd, starting in Albany, Georgia. You can follow us for more information on social media. We just launched our social media account. It's Souls of Freedom, SOLES, like the sole of your feet. Souls of Freedom on IG. You can visit our website for more information. That's soulsoffreedom.org, SOLES of freedom.org. If you need more information, feel free to email us, info@soulsoffreedom.org. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the opportunity today, and I hope to see you in Georgia on September the 16th. as we take this journey to move Georgia forward. Thank you.
Yes, come on, Dr. Chavis. And you know who's going to be there. Don't you worry. We'll be there standing side by side with you, DeAndre, and all of those brave, amazing HBCU students. I just want everybody to know that our partnership for the 10 million more black voters is serious. Dr. Chavis is going to give you he's going to have the lead, but he wants you to know his commitment. I want you to know that we're going to be doing a national tour for voters. We're going to start in Minneapolis. We're going to Milwaukee. We're coming to you, Chicago. Watch out, Grand Rapids. Hey, Detroit. Get ready. Get ready. We're coming to Cleveland, Akron. We're going to Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, coming through Wilmington, all the way to Annapolis, then to Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia. Watch out, Richmond, we're coming. And we will see you in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. We will be in Wilmington. Then we're going to Charleston. Then we're going to Savannah. We're coming through Brunswick, through Camden, and we're ending in Jacksonville, Florida. And so get ready. If you're in any of those places, write us. Get involved in our voting rights tour, October the 9th through the 17th.
All right, I just want to, before leaving, say that we've been getting calls from all over the United States. Millions of people are watching this live on live stream. I just want to, on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, on behalf of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust, we want to really owe a debt of gratitude to Attorney Barbara Anwar and to Attorney Darrell Jones from the Transformative Justice Coalition. Let's give them another hand.
Thank you.
This has been a great day. No better way to recognize, to celebrate voting rights 57 years later. We're still fighting for voting rights. And this year, 2022, we're going to have the largest voter turnout in American history in all of our communities. Black voter turnout, Latino voter turnout, Asian American turnout, Native American, all white voter turnout, progressive voter turnout. We're all going to work to turn our country around, protect our democracy, and in the words of the Honorable John Lewis, making good trouble. Making good trouble by getting out to vote. God bless you. Thank you all. We have a few remaining points for the day's mobilization, but I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm so proud of the Thurgood Marshall Center, so proud of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, all of our publishers around the country, and Engage, all the cities that Barbara just announced. And I know some of you down in Texas are wondering, are we coming to Texas? We're not going to leave Texas out. We're coming to Texas. We're coming to Dallas. We're coming to Houston. We're coming to Austin. We're coming to San Antonio. We're not leaving nobody out. Coast to coast. Get the vote out. Celebrate. Black votes, Black votes matter. All people matter. All votes matter. We're going to turn this country around in the right direction. God bless you. Thank you. Aluta continua.
Thank you, Dr. Chavis. Always a pleasure to walk shoulder to shoulder with someone who has been in the fight and knows how to fight and isn't afraid to stand up and fight with you. It makes all the difference in the world when you have someone that has the history, the legacy, and the proven track record of being a winning fighter. So we're really proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with the National Newspaper Publishers Association and Dr. Ben Chavis. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to bring forward, it's our pleasure to bring forward now a gentleman who comes from Annapolis, Maryland. He has been in the fight, in the struggle for voting rights and for equal rights in the state of Maryland for a while. One of our young fighters. You're going to be hearing a lot from him in the future as he moves forward. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Keanu Smith Brown. Keanu.
Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you to Darrell as well as to Barbara and everyone for having me. I am honored to be speaking and to be giving a rendition of John Lewis's last words. I will also ensure and reassure you that as chair of the Board of Supervisors of Elections in Annapolis, Maryland, I will continue to push and fight to expand for our voting rights in our city and across our state. Together, you can redeem the nation. Together, you can redeem the soul of our nation. Though I am gone, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. By John Lewis. Mr. Lewis, the civil rights leader who died on July 17th, wrote this essay shortly before his death to be published upon the day of his funeral. While my time here has now come to an end, I want you to know that in the last days and hours of my life, you inspired me. You filled me with hope about the next chapter of the great American story when you used your power to make a difference in our society. Millions of people motivated simply by human compassion laid down the burdens of division. Around the country and the world, you set aside race, class, age, language, and nationality to demand respect for human dignity. That is why I had to visit Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, though I was admitted to the hospital in the following day. I just had to see and feel it for myself that after many years of silent witness, the truth is still marching on. Emmett Till was my George Floyd. He was my Rayshard Brooks, Sandra Bland, and Breonna Taylor. He was 14 when he was killed, and I was only 15 years old at the time. I will never, ever forget the moment when it became so clear that he could easily have been me. In those days, fear constrained us like an imaginary prison, and troubling thoughts of potential brutality committed for no understandable reason were the bars. Though I was surrounded by two loving parents, plenty of brothers, sisters, and cousins, their love could not protect me from the unholy oppression waiting just outside that family circle. Unchecked, unrestrained violence and government-sanctioned terror had the power to turn a simple stroll to the store for some Skittles or an innocent morning jog down a lonesome country road into a nightmare. If we are to survive as one unified nation, we must discover what so readily takes root in our hearts that could rob Mother Emanuel Church in South Carolina of her brightest and best, shoot unwitting concert goers in Las Vegas, and choke to death the hopes and dreams of a gifted violinist like Elijah McClain. Like so many young people today, I was searching for a way out, or some might say a way in, and then I heard the voice of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on an old radio. He was talking about the philosophy and discipline of nonviolence. He said we are complicit when we tolerate injustice. He said it is not enough to say it will get better by and by. He said each of us has a moral obligation to stand up, and speak out. When you see something that is not right, you must say something. You must do something. Democracy is not a state. It is an act, and each generation must do its part to help build what we called the beloved community, a nation and world society at peace with itself. Ordinary people with extraordinary vision can redeem the soul of America by getting in what I call good trouble, necessary trouble. Voting and participating in the democratic process are key. The vote is the most powerful nonviolent change agent you have in a democratic society. You must use it because it is not guaranteed. You can lose it. You must also study and learn the lessons of history because humanity has been involved in this soul-wrenching existential struggle for a very long time. People on every continent have stood in your shoes through decades and centuries before you. The truth does not change, and that is why the answers worked out long ago can help you find solutions to the challenges of our time. Continue to build union between movements stretching across the globe because we must put away our willingness to profit from the exploitation of others. Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now it is your turn to let freedom ring. When historians pick up their pens to write the story of the 21st century, let them say that it was your generation who laid down the heavy burdens of hate at last, and that peace finally triumphed over violence, aggression, and war. So I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide. God bless you in our United States of America.
Just beautiful. Young people leading. Beautiful.
And you know, Barbara, I could feel the spirit of John Lewis as he was speaking. I could feel the passion. I could feel the love that John Lewis had for voting rights and for particularly young people in the voting rights struggle. You know, as we talk about this path forward, we've been certainly lifting up the struggles that have been there. We've lifted up the leaders of tomorrow that are going to be leading us on this path forward. But we got to be certain that we identify that path forward so we know the direction that we're heading in and where we're asking people to go and the streets that we're asking people to get in and where we're going in our overall strategy. You know, it's our pleasure at this point in time to introduce another one of our partners in this struggle. I can tell you that Black Voters Matters Fund, Black Voters Matter Fund is an organization that we see all over the place. Wherever we look and we're standing up in the middle of a fight, if we look to our left or to our right, we know that the Black Voters Matters are going to be right there with us in this struggle. I can tell you that in the person of Cliff Albright, who is the co-founder of the Black Voters Matter Fund, who is with us today to come and speak, he and I have a brotherly kinship toward one another. You know, I always tell the story, and Cliff always chides me when I tell it, Barbara, that when I came to D.C., he asked me, did I want to be part of a protest? Would I be willing to stand up with him and fight for voting rights? And I told him yes. The next thing I knew, Barbara, I was going to jail.
Uh-oh, watch out.
Cliff Albright and I have become very good friends. Have become very good friends. And ladies and gentlemen, Black Voters Matter and the Transformative Justice Coalition are intersynced. And whenever you'll find one, you'll find the other in this fight. It's my pleasure to bring up to speak at this point in time Cliff Albright, the co-founder of the Black Voters Matter Fund. Cliff.
Hey, Daryl, thank you for that introduction. I just want to co-sign onto everything that Daryl said there and guarantee that, yes, anytime he and Barbara look to the left and look to the right, that I and Black Voters Matter and our entire team will always be there with them. Because we know wherever they go, they're fighting for justice and they're fighting for our rights. And so I'm pleased to be here on this day, celebrating this anniversary, celebrating this moment in history. And I think it's relevant that we take a look back at what was going on at this time in 1965. What was going on at the time leading up to the passage of the Voting Rights Act? What did we have going on in this country? There was a war going on, a major war going on in the form of Vietnam, right? We had economic challenges facing our country, which was part of why the president and others were trying to create legislation around a great society, bold new legislation that they were trying to get passed on a range of issues, including economic issues. Does this sound familiar to you? Let me know if it sounds familiar. What we were dealing with is divided politics, where we had not just a divided Congress, not just divided in terms of the parties, but even within parties, we were facing division. Even within the president's party, where you had those Democrats who were supportive of democracy and voting rights, and others also known as Dixiecrats that weren't so supportive. And then you had the Republicans, right? And so you had a divided politics, again, similar to what we're facing. And we were facing a situation in 1965 where voting rights had a recent defeat. Keep in mind that voting rights was originally supposed to be included in some of the earlier voting rights legislation, the Civil Rights Bill, right? But it was thought that it was too much to try to deal with public accommodations and to try to deal with voting rights. And so voting rights had taken a back seat and had faced a recent legislative defeat, right? Again, rescue me if you recognize anything familiar in terms of what's been going on over the past year and a half and the battle that we've had for voting rights over the past year and a half and even longer. And so we were facing some things very similar to what we're facing now. But when all was said and done in 1965, at the end of the day, in this month, what we saw was the passage of the Voting Rights Act, right? In spite of all of those things that I just said, we still achieved that victory. And that's why I am just as confident now as I was back when Darrell and I and others got arrested and we were fighting for voting rights then, and we're still fighting for voting rights now in order to continue the legacy of John Lewis that you just heard the poem being read by, in order to continue the legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer, in order to continue the legacy of those who marched and fought and bled in Selma. That battle still goes on. And so how can we get there? That's where we've been, but how are we going to get to where we're going? Couple things that we got to do. One, we got to come out and vote. Now, I'm not one who's for this notion that all we have to do is just go vote and out organize voter suppression and all of that stuff. But it goes without saying that we have got to come out and vote in this election and vote for folks that are going to commit up front that they are going to move on voting rights. Not just that they support voting rights, right? Because folks will tell you they support voting rights, but then they don't want to make the changes that need to be named in order to get voting rights passed. I'm talking about the filibuster and some other procedural things that have been used to block our rights. So we've got to hold folks accountable that they're going to, once they get there, not only are they going to support voting rights, but they're going to support ending the filibuster in order to get voting rights passed, and that they've got to support other aspects of voting rights that aren't often talked about. Y'all are there in DC right now, and I never want to talk about voting rights without mentioning that the denial of the complete vote to our friends and family in Washington, D.C., the lack of D.C. statehood is one of the oldest forms of voter suppression. That has got to be part of the voting rights battle as well. That has got to be part of this voting rights contract that we have got to seek. So it is our job to make sure that as we're going out to vote, that we make sure that the issue of voting rights remains front and center, along with all the other critical issues that we're dealing with. We're dealing with COVID still, and monkeypox, and inflation, and all these other issues. We're dealing with police violence still. But we have got to make sure that voting rights remains front and center, and that's why we've got to get a contract and commitments from these candidates. So wherever you are, if you're hosting a town hall, if you're hosting a candidate forum, if you're just someplace where you're able to talk to these candidates, get them to go on record that they support voting rights, that they support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, that they support DC statehood, that they support ending the filibuster, which at the end of the day is also going to let us get moving on all these other issues that's near and dear to our hearts. That's the voting piece. But this is the other thing that we got to do. We got to remember that there's a lot that we've done. In fact, even with the Voting Rights Act of 65, we didn't get it just by voting for folks, right? We got it by marching and protesting and direct action and nonviolent civil disobedience. And as John Lewis said, by making good trouble. In fact, nothing that we've ever achieved in this country in regards to racial justice and voting rights or civil rights or human rights has ever come about just from us going out to vote for it, right? We didn't end segregation on the Montgomery buses just by going out to vote for it, right? We didn't end slavery just by going out and voting to end slavery. It took action. It took insurrection. It took a whole Underground Railroad. It took a whole abolitionist movement. It took nonviolent direct action. And that is the same thing. The same things that we have always done throughout our history is what we need now in order to continue the battle and the legacy of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to get the voting rights that we need right now. And the last thing I'm going to say is this, that we can get all of those things in spite of what the media tells us, in spite of what some elected officials will want to tell us. Some will say that, oh, voting rights had its time and it had its vote, and now we got to move on to other stuff. In due season, we shall reap if we faint not. And that's what I've been saying for the past year and a half, and that is what I still believe. There may come a day where we could just have a 1965 Voting Rights Act commemoration and not worry about the fact that we still have to fight a good fight. But today is not that day. Today's the day that we have got to lean into the battle, that we've got to lean into the advocacy, that we've got to join TG, to the Transformative Justice Coalition, and Barbara and Dow and us and others that are going to be doing that bus tour. Join the brother that's going to be in Georgia doing that Souls the Freedom March that he was just talking about. Take some action, because that's what it's going to take. And in due season, we shall reap if we faint not. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much, Cliff. You are amazing. And we know Latasha Brown would have been with us, but she's in Israel today. And so we want to just thank you, Black Voters Matters, for all of your amazing hard work. We appreciate you. And of course, your brother Daryl is ready to go back to jail again. So thank you for everything. It is our pleasure now to bring up somebody who should be on everybody's lips. You should know her name. She is responsible. For the last several years, she has funded the voting rights movement. She has been one of the prime persons. Before then, she was part of the Obama administration's Department of Education. Before then, she worked with me at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law as our policy director. You know who I'm talking about. You've seen her. She is amazing. I'm talking about the mighty, powerful Tanya Clay House.
Well, thank you so much, Barbara, and thank you so much, Daryl, for all that you've been doing, and thank you for hosting this broadcast. I am here doing this because it has to be done. I am sitting in a hotel room at the Junior Olympics. I am also a track coach and just finished with the Junior Olympics. Very excited. My two sons are now All-Americans, top in the country, so I'm really excited. So I'm on a high. And I'm very excited to be able to be here with you all today. So please excuse my garb, but I am, in track coach mode as well. But I'm also always in voting rights mode. And I'm always in supporting our communities, particularly our BIPOC communities, because we know that this is what has to be done in order to ensure that we have power and that we bring to all that is being done, the leadership and the guidance and the wisdom that we, particularly as Black people, know and have bled for. We know what needs to be done in order to move this country forward, and we have to take the reins. We've done so in so many different ways, and I've been privileged to be able to support our community, most recently within the funding community of philanthropy, by supporting those who I used to work with side by side, and that's been such a pleasure. I've been very privileged to be able to ensure that the movement is funded in the way that it needs to be funded, and to also engage with other funders in our community to make sure that they understood that this is a year-round proposition. This isn't something that we just do all of a sudden before one major election in August. This is something we do every single day of the year, and that the work of voting rights is the work of empowering our community, and that this goes to all things that we do, not only making sure that we're engaged in our democratic process, but looking at every issue that affects you, whether it's education, as Barbara indicated. I worked in the Obama administration as Deputy Assistant Secretary. If you believe and you want to make sure that your child is getting the best education they possibly should be, then you need to be voting for your school board members. You need to be voting for who it is, making sure that you understand who your superintendent is. You need to be voting if you are concerned about what's happening in your community, particularly around gun violence, looking at what's happening with the prosecutors, your elected officials. And it's not just the president, it's not just our state legislators, it's our judges. All of this is impacted by the vote. And this is also impacted from the beginning. And so one of the things I really want to highlight and uplift is the fact that we need to also make sure that we're educating our children and they understand the importance of our democracy. They understand that what being civically engaged is, that they know that from day one, in order to make sure that they are represented, that there are things that they have to do in order to be participants in our democracy. Our democracy doesn't work if we don't participate. And so we have to ensure that even as we have the Cliffs and Barbara and Daryl and all that has come before me, those that are leading in the field right now, that our youth and our young people know that this is not just, oh, I'm going to get up and talk and I'm going to talk about things, that you're actually doing you're walking the walk, and that you are making sure you understand that this is a day-to-day issue, and that in fact, when we vote, we are voting, as I said, for the empowerment of our community, but that it may not happen immediately. And so understanding how our democratic process works means that you're not going to get discouraged by one election, but that this is a long-term goal and that it's not going to be immediate. I know that right now we're in the age of immediate gratification, but that's not what we're about right here. We have to make sure that we understand that we educate our community. We educate those that are our young people. We educate all those that are around us to understand that this is a long-term fight, and we can't get discouraged by some losses, because this goes up and down. Martin Luther King, all of our leaders talked about how it ebbs and flows, that we're going to, this is not a straight line in which we engage in the empowerment of our community. And so I just want to make sure that we are engaging our young people, that we are educating all those around us. And it's not just young people, it's those that haven't been engaged in the civic process to understand that, we always say that this is the time you've got to vote. But you know what? People get frustrated and discouraged because they feel like, well, I voted this one time and this person wasn't elected. But you know what? You can't let that stop you. And we have to be responsible for making sure people understand why they have to keep voting, why they have to keep doing the things that they do in their community. And so I just want to thank you, Barbara. I want to thank you, Daryl, for all the great work, for making this day memorable, for always doing something on the ground. You have been my mentor, Barbara. You're someone who has guided and led me in so many different ways. I am privileged and will always come, even in my track uniform, to make sure that I can find a way to support the work that is being done, because I know that this makes a difference and that what you're doing on the ground is so meaningful. And I appreciate you. I appreciate Daryl. I appreciate the Transformative Justice Coalition. And I'm going to continue to do my work. I also chair the Civil Rights section of the National Bar Association. And through that position and positions that I will continue to move forward on in the future, I'm going to make sure that I am engaged and always engaged in supporting the uplifting of our Black community and those around us, so that we can have truly an inclusive democracy, and that we can make sure that we are receiving the benefits of this great country, and that we are able to be what God has created us to be. Those that are made in his image, and those that are beautiful in all things. And that is who we are. That is what we are entitled to. That is what we have to work for. And I thank you, Transformative Justice Coalition, for what you have done today. You all go out, be good, work, and help us make sure that we're empowering our communities. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Tanya. It is now our pleasure to bring up our last speaker. We are sorry, but Reverend Barber is a pastor, and pastors have duties. And when members have emergencies, pastors have to be with their members. So he sadly cannot join us today, but he tried, and he tried. And I am so sorry that he will not be with us this time, but everybody knows that his voice, his vision, and his leadership is amazing and powerful. So before our benediction, we're going to bring up our last speaker, and she's not the least. She may be the last, but she's awful mighty. We're talking about Daryl. Go ahead, bring her in.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to introduce the Election Protection Fellow for the Transformative Justice Coalition, as well as the National Bar Association. She's none other than Lynn Whitfield. Lynn.
Attorney Lynn.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see all your smiling faces still here. And I know it's hot and I know it's getting late, but I have a very important announcement for you. As you heard, I am the Director of Election Protection and the Election Protection Fellow for the National Bar Association and TJC. I also have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of the Good Trouble Voting Rights Institute. See, we started doing this work, and in doing the work and talking with people, Daryl Jones and Barbara Unwine saw a void. There's a void that was there because we tell people to go out and vote, but we don't necessarily tell them the history of voting. And I live in Florida, so you know, in my state, they can't learn it in school because we got the Stop Woke Act, because we want people to be asleep. We don't want people to know what the history is and how this country really started with only allowing voting for white males of a certain religion that owned property. But we have an answer to that. The Good Trouble Voting Rights Institute does webinars. Our next session will start on September the 10th. Our first session was last September, and we did 7 hourly webinars, and we took you from this country being formed and how voting evolved and all of the things that have occurred in this country as it relates to voting up till today. Then our second semester, we dealt with activism. What is activism? And we looked at it from various viewpoints. Activism in the arts, activism in the church, activism in the young generation, activism in lawyers. So all of those are found on the Transformative Justice Coalition's YouTube. They are free. It's all free. Knowledge is power, and we understand that, and we want voters to be well informed. If you did not sign in and register and give us your name and your email, please do so before you leave, because that is what we're going to use to make sure that you get notice when we are starting our registration for our Good Trouble Voting Rights Institute. And also, we want you to spread the word. Don't just keep it to yourself. Don't get the knowledge and just hold on to it like, you know, yes, it is precious, but please, please share it. We have licensed anyone who wants to use those videos for educational purposes to do so. So please. That's what they're going to give me their email so they can get the registration information. Say it now. That's what I think I had said, just in case you didn't hear it. If you give us your email, you will get notification when registration is open. And that way you can sign up and you can attend. Now, we have a couple of ways you can attend if you want to get a certificate of having completed the whole semester. You can do that. You can also, we also live stream it on Facebook, so you're able to watch it. So please follow TJC.DC Facebook page so you will get notified when it is live also, even if you don't attend the webinar. And I want to thank Dr. Barbara Unwine and Attorney Daryl Jones, one, for having the vision and the desire to make sure that our community as a whole is educated about voting and all things voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn.
And if for our viewing audience, if you want to sign up and become part of the Institute or any of the programs that you heard Lynn mention, you can go to votingrightsalliance.org, votingrightsalliance.org, and you'll have the ability to sign up for any of those programs. Barbara?
Yes, and you can also please follow us at tjcoalition.org, tjcoalition.org. We want to thank our audience for being so faithful, for all of these hours, for coming and participating. We want to thank the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust Mr. Brown, and Thomasina Yearwood, and Dr. Chavis, and all the people who have made it possible for us to be here today and who keep this wonderful, historic building in our community. We are grateful. We want to thank the Baltimore's Events Solutions, and Simon Piles, and all of the amazing staff that produced this show today. Thank you for everything you've done, for all of your hard work. We want to thank all the volunteers who have come out to be with us today and have helped to do so. We want to thank Puddin' for the food. Oh, yes. And for all of theirs. We want to thank the partners who have helped to co-sponsor this event. We want to thank the Rainbow Push Coalition, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, the National News Publishers Association, the Baltimore-Washington United Methodist Conference, the Concerned Black Men of America, and the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust again. And thanks to all of our amazing speakers, all of our partners, and for our brilliant songstress. You're going to be hearing one last song before we depart today, but we're going to have our benediction first, and then she will sing us home. Thank you, Daryl. Go ahead.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for all that you've done, for all the dedication that you've given over the years for voting rights and civil rights.
And I'm the lucky one. I work with a genius. I work with a visionary, a hardworking man, and I am grateful to you as our co-leader, Daryl D. Jones.
Thank you so much. It's our pleasure to now bring up for the benediction from the Baltimore-Washington United Methodist Conference, Reverend Stacy Cole Wilson, who will deliver the benediction, followed by our songstress today, Tiara. Reverend?
Greetings, beloved. From the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, the name of the Lord is to be praised. It is my honor and joy to participate in this 57th anniversary celebration of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. To all who've made this celebration possible, Barbara Arnwine, Daryl Jones of the Transformative Justice Coalition, sponsors, presenters, and guests, thank you for your efforts to ensure our democracy and for this invitation to join you. Will you pray with me? Almighty and most merciful God who interprets every groan, we thank you for the gift of your presence, for it is in you that we live, move, and have our being. We acknowledge the vastness of your power, the depths of your love, the possibilities that accompany your promise. And as you were with Elizabeth Freeman, Ida B. Wells Barnett, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucretia Mott, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Thurgood Marshall, John Lewis, and so many others, as they've led movements and laid foundations to secure and maintain the right to vote for African Americans, culminating in the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So you are with us. You remain the God who is able to keep us from falling. You remain the God of Stacey Abrams. You remain the one who works with us to ensure that every vote counts and that all votes are represented well. We trust in your power, as you were with Bishop Richard Allen and many others who've organized persons to launch movements and provide spaces for persons to advance and expand human rights. So you are with us, calling us to do all within our power to make real liberty and justice for all. As you journeyed with your children throughout every age, you have proven to be the God who is faithful. You have proven to be the one who calls your people out of darkness into this marvelous light. You are the one who desires for each of us to have abundant lives and to live them to the fullest extent. So from Selma to Montgomery to Georgia and across the United States and around the world, God, we thank you because no voter intimidation, poll taxes, ideological or physical tear gases, reimagined nightsticks or whips, language accessibility issues, failure to timely process voter registrations, cuts to election day, same-day registrations, inadequate lines at polling locations, excessive voter purging, ex-felon disenfranchisement laws, strict voter ID laws, new restrictive legislation, discriminatory voter roll purges, long lines, closed polling places, and misinformation. No efforts to overthrow elections through litigation, invalidation of ballot cast by mail will not stop us from voting in all the elections that make a difference to our lives, communities, schools, world. Nothing will be able to keep us from exercising our right to vote, and no unjust efforts will prevent our votes from being counted. So we refuse to turn back now to secure the voting rights that all deserve. Strengthen, oh God, our resolve. Increase our mobilization efforts as we, in the words of James Weldon Johnson, say, stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat. Have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers and mothers, I add, sighed. We have come, beloved, over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered, out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright starry cast. And then he concludes, God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light. Keep us, God, keep us, hold us, strengthen us forever in the path we pray. Bless and keep us, we are blessed. Send us forth from this place with the power of your words, leading us into spaces in which, oh God, we make your justice realized to all you've created this day. It is in the name of love we offer this prayer. In the name of Jesus, let the people of God say, amen.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Concludes the 2022 57th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Thank you for participating. Thank you, Daryl Jones, for officiating. Thank you, everybody.